Just moments ago, Li Sheng slapped me so hard I saw stars, my head ringing with a high-pitched buzz. I hadn't even realized he was going to strike. My face burned, and tears welled up uncontrollably. I couldn't tell if it was from the pain or the rage. 3 years together. All those days and nights, it felt like a single slap had ground every bit of it into dust. Gasps erupted from the onlookers, and someone tried to smooth things over. But I saw Li Sheng leaning down to whisper to that girl, his eyes filled with tenderness. Looking at the two of them, a surge of emotion rose from the depths of my heart and stuck in my throat. In that moment, I had only one goal: scratch Li Sheng's face to shreds. He lost his footing, and I tackled him to the ground. Ignoring his struggles, I slapped him right across the face, so hard my palm went numb. Li Sheng, we're breaking up. He had scratch marks bleeding down his neck, and his eyes were red with fury. Fine, you said it, don't you dare come back to me. I had been in love with Li Sheng for 10 years. During the 3 years we were together, everyone warned me he wasn't right for me. Back then, I was foolish enough to believe I was the exception. Looking back now, it's just pathetic and ridiculous. As I packed my things, I smashed every single item we shared. Before walking out the door, I looked at the street and made a vow. If I ever look back, may I be hit by a car. Life after the breakup was mundane, yet I still woke up in the middle of the night, wiping away tears and forcing myself back to sleep. I never told anyone why I liked Li Sheng so much. It wasn't because of his looks or his cheerful personality. It was because, once upon a time, Li Sheng was the hero who saved me from a living hell. That man had told little me that it was just a game. Since he was a teacher, I had to obey. That game made me so sick to my stomach, I wanted to tear my own skin off and shatter my bones. I remember the last time, in his office one afternoon, he held me and whispered disgusting things. That was when Li Sheng burst in. Without a second of hesitation, he punched the man so hard his nose exploded with blood. I curled up in Li Sheng's arms, unable to do anything but cry. When the truth came out, I testified and the man went to prison. But plenty of people scolded me, lecturing me on why I didn't fight back or scream. But my family had taught me since childhood to endure as much as I could. Some even called me a curse, a disgrace. But wasn't the man who abused me the one who should be condemned? Why was everyone yelling at me? After that, everyone distanced themselves from me. I was afraid to look up, afraid to smile, doing my best to become invisible. Only Li Sheng treated me the same as always, chatting with me with a smile. He told me to smile more, saying I looked beautiful when I did. In all the grey darkness of my childhood, Li Sheng was the only light left. As we grew up, that incident was buried deep within my memory. I thought I would never see him again, but I never expected my boss to arrange a dinner with Li Sheng. My boss said Li Sheng's girlfriend loved hot pot and told me to book a private room. He stood up, squinting as he scanned the room outside. Once the room is booked, go out and bring Zhang Kuo in. As my boss led Zhang Kuo away, he even winked at me. The night deepened, just as I was about to fall asleep. I was woken up by my boss's phone call. He kept calling, bombarding me on WeChat and QQ. I gritted my teeth and answered. After listening to him ramble on for ages, it turned out he wanted me to drive the company car to pick him up. I snapped back coldly. Can't you call a taxi yourself? He said, if you come pick me up, I'll give you 5,000. I immediately threw on my coat, hailed a taxi, and went to get the company car. When I got to the hot pot restaurant, I saw my boss collapsed onto Li Sheng, refusing to let go, while the girl nearby looked awkward and helpless. Yuten, come here, hurry, over here. The moment my boss saw me, it was like he'd seen his savior. Li Sheng was holding him up and looked at me. Did you drive here? I nodded. I'll help you carry him. He's pretty heavy. Li Sheng was wearing a brown trench coat today that made him look tall with long legs. I thanked him reluctantly and walked quickly ahead to lead the way. Put him in the passenger seat. My boss gets carsick, he can't sit in the back. After stuffing my boss into the car, I said thanks a few more times. He looked like he was getting tired of it, his expression a bit strained. Yusen, you don't need to thank me. I didn't reply. I turned around and covered my boss's mouth. If you're not going to throw up, stop dry heaving. Let's get some air. He held my hand and giggled like a fool, telling me the deal was done today. Yusen, call Zhang Kuo in a bit, will you? Ask if old Zhang got him home safe. My boss mumbled with his eyes closed. I started the engine and glanced at him sideways. Worry about yourself first. Listening to his steady breathing, watching the colorful neon signs flash by the window, and feeling the cool night breeze on my face, I actually felt a sense of peace. For the first time, I felt like maybe I should let go of Li Sheng. Let go of that ugly past, let go of my 12-year love for him, and just live my own life properly. To thank me for picking him up that night, my boss specially invited me on a luxury cruise to discuss a project and relax. But when I got there, I learned what it truly meant for a ghost to never leave. With just one glance, I spotted Li Sheng in the crowd. He was kissing a beautiful woman in his arms. My boss glanced at me and asked, "Do you know him?" The sea breeze messed up my hair, and I casually tucked it behind my ear. The sunlight was a bit glaring. I had a secret crush on him for over 10 years. We dated for a few years after I confessed, but he cheated on me. He choked up a little and blinked unnaturally. I put on a relaxed smile and pulled him over to sit at the bar to order some drinks. He shook his head while drinking. I don't know what's so good about Li Sheng. I can't believe you liked him for so long. That's half your youth gone. My cheeks felt hot, and I had to prop my chin up just to focus my vision. I chose to like him. I was just too stubborn. That secret crush I thought I had hidden so well was probably discovered by Li Sheng long ago. Because he pulled me out of the darkness, I felt an abnormal sense of closeness to him. My heart would ache for him when he was made to stand for punishment for skipping breakfast. I would feel pity for him when he got hurt doing a good deed. During that time, we formed a twisted, almost sick emotional bond. I would forgive anything he did, tolerating him without any bottom line. I was feeling incredibly dizzy, so I stood up to go back to the room and rest, but I suddenly stumbled and almost crashed into my boss. Is Brother Zhang here too? A laughing voice came from behind me. Is this your girlfriend? I felt annoyed the moment I heard his voice. Zhang Kuo shook his head. This is my friend. Didn't you block me on WeChat and curse me out on the phone? A hand landed on my shoulder, his palm hot, trying to turn me around. Why are you at Yu Yaoyao's birthday party? I thought he was being incredibly shameless. He had to blow up my phone on WeChat saying he left some things behind and didn't know what to do with them. I told him to just throw them away, and then he went silent, only to call me directly. I told him kindly and politely that I didn't want a single one of those things, so he should just throw them away, or else save them to burn for him when he dies as a gift. But Li Shang was insistent. He said he had to see it for himself before deciding whether to throw it away. I gritted my teeth and glared at the clueless Zhang Kuo. He leaned in with a look of grievance. How was I supposed to know it was his girlfriend's birthday? Fighting the urge to roll my eyes, I coldly pushed his hand away as he tried to grab me. I won't disturb your party, goodbye. As I was leaving, I accidentally caught Li Shang's smiling eyes. He was leaning casually against the bar, raising his glass to me. I hated how he acted like nothing mattered. I was the one who slapped him, the one who smashed things, and the one who said I never wanted to see him again. It felt like I was the only one struggling and putting on a show, while he didn't care what happened between us at all. I ignored them and went back to my room to rest. After night fell, Zhang Kuo called me to the deck to look at the stars. He had a blue thermos by his hand and beckoned me with a smile. Yu Chen, come over here and clear your head. The evening breeze was blowing gently. It really was comfortable. I chatted with him and asked what was in the thermos. He turned his head, his eyes sparkling. Guess? He held the cup up in front of my face. Iced tea. I wanted to say something but stopped myself, so I changed the subject and asked if he had a girlfriend. He couldn't believe I dared to ask such a question. His mouth hung half open for a long time, so quiet that I thought time had stopped. He sighed and looked up at the sky. I can't forget my ex-girlfriend. I knew when to shut up. Once 10 o'clock passed, my boss with his regular sleep schedule had to go back to sleep. After seeing Zhang Kuo off, I sat there alone, letting the sea breeze blow against me. Slowly, a sense of powerlessness crept in from all sides, almost suffocating me. Are you Yu-sen? The sudden voice made me look up. The girl in front of me sat down. I'm Yu Yaoyao. She looked familiar. She was the one Li Sheng cheated with. Her gaze was gentle, as if she were afraid of scaring me. Why aren't you asleep yet? Not sleepy. She hesitated, looking at my face again and again. I didn't want to hear a word, so I turned to leave, but a dull pain suddenly shot through my lower abdomen. Yu-sen. She stood up. I have something to say to you. I didn't sit down, just looked at her coldly. Actually, my heart aches for you. Yu Yaoyao's eyes welled up with tears as she reached out to grab me. I feel what you went through deeply. A loud explosion went off in my brain. A jolt of electricity shot from the soles of my feet to the top of my skull. All I could see were her lips moving. How did she know? But Yu-sen, you can't keep holding Li Sheng back. It's not his fault, he just saved you. Tears fell from her eyes. He shouldn't have to live his life chained by responsibility to you. My head was spinning. I dug my nails into my palm, asking word for word, how do you know? She cried, until her nose turned red, stammering. Li Sheng is really in so much pain, that's why. I closed my eyes. The urge to vomit rose in my throat, making it hard to breathe. Am I just a lubricant for your burning passion? If he's in so much pain, why doesn't he just go die? The twisting pain in my abdomen like a knife made it almost impossible to walk. Yu Yaoyao tried to grab me again, claiming over and over that it was for my own good, telling me to let Li Sheng go and let myself go. They had been flirting secretly before without getting together, but the moment we broke up, they hooked up instantly. It turned out they were just using my story to win sympathy. Suddenly, I felt there was no need to hide from him anymore. In the past, no matter how sunny I acted on the surface, privately, I was always like an insecure rat, only worthy of living in the dark corners. I was weak. I felt I didn't deserve the dazzling Li Sheng. I didn't even have the courage to stop him when he flirted with other girls or came home in the middle of the night after playing around. Yu Yaoyao was still trying to persuade me to let Li Sheng go, but I didn't hear a single word. What kind of logic was it to push their problems onto me? She actually grabbed me and made me swear to never approach Li Sheng again. Sure, I agreed with a smile, though my words were venomous. I swear, if Li Sheng dares to pester me again, he'll bleed from every orifice and drop dead the very next day. Yu Yaoyao's mouth formed an O. She pointed at my nose and screamed, I didn't realize you were so vicious, and here I was pitying you. You deserve to be tortured. Yao Yao, an angry voice came from behind. Li Sheng ran over, put her away, and stood in front of her. She's drunk. I'm sorry. I took a step back to put some distance between us, hugging my arms and snorting coldly. Does being drunk give you the right to have a foul mouth? I apologize to you. Li Sheng lowered his head, blocking Yu Yao, who wanted to speak again. I'm sorry, Yu Chen. Please forgive her. I'm truly sorry. His tall frame completely shielded her, as if he were afraid I would suddenly lash out and hit someone. The night wind messed up my hair, covering my tear-filled eyes. I sneered. Get on your knees and beg me, and I'll forgive her. Don't go too far. Yu Yao poked her head out from behind him. Your ordeal has nothing to do with Li Sheng. Why does he owe you his time? Li Sheng turned his head to scold her. Yu Yao, shut up. Yet, their hands were tightly clasped together. My chest heaved, and my face burned hot. You two really know how to avoid the point. Surging anger climbed from my feet through my entire body. I dug my nails into my palms to stay rational. Li Sheng. You didn't cheat because of what happened to me. You cheated because you are a filthy bastard who can't keep it in his pants. The pain in my abdomen became more and more obvious. I didn't look at them again. I turned around and quickened my pace. My vision was blurry and I couldn't see my surroundings clearly. I didn't know if it was from the pain or the tears. I walked in a daze for a long time. Just as I was opening the door, a hand reached around my waist and closed the door I had just opened. Yu-sen, let's talk. I didn't expect him to follow me. His familiar scent wrapped around me. I stepped aside to dodge him. I have nothing to say to you. Li Sheng's chest heaved and his voice was filled with grievance. Do we have to be enemies just because we broke up? Why can't we get along like we used to? I wanted to laugh. But the cramping pain in my abdomen kept me from standing up straight. What then? After breaking up, am I supposed to hug you affectionately and call you baby? He took a step closer, blocking the light above my head. I mean, even if we can't be lovers, we can still be friends. Absolutely shameless, I wanted to stab him. The pain grew more and more intense, like an electric drill trying to burst out of my belly. I leaned against the wall, my legs too weak to stand. What's wrong with you? He shouted. I looked up at him, my vision as blurry as if looking through frosted glass. Li Sheng reached out and wrapped his arms around me. His body radiated a continuous stream of heat. I collapsed into his arms, shivering. His hand pushed the limit, reaching up to touch my sweaty face. With a burst of inexplicable strength, I rolled out of his embrace and crouched by the door, gasping for air. Don't touch me. Look at the situation, Yu-sen. Li Sheng frowned. What's more important, your life or throwing a tantrum? I wiped away the tears from the corner of my lips, pressed my joined hands against my forehead, and spoke with a tone close to begging. Please don't touch me. He raised his hands and nodded repeatedly, his eyes red. I won't touch you. I won't. I just wanted to help you open the door. There was a beep. I grabbed the door frame to stand up, but the dragging pain hadn't weakened in the slightest. I didn't have the strength to drive him away anymore. I was walking purely on instinct. He walked straight up to support me, his voice softening. Stop fighting it for now. I'm afraid you'll faint from the pain. I opened the bathroom door, but he suddenly blocked my way. Did you grab your pads? I didn't have the energy to yell at him, so I tried to squeeze past him and get inside. What about clean underwear? Seeing my stunned expression, Li Sheng sighed, his tense body finally relaxing. He looked around the room, walked over to the bedside table, picked up my bear-shaped bag, and gave it a shake. In here? I snatched the bag out of his hand and slammed the door shut. When I emerged from the bathroom, still shaky, Li Sheng was sitting on the chair. He raised an eyebrow and waved at me. Does your stomach still hurt? I didn't want to look at him. Can you get the hell out? He acted like he hadn't heard me. He stood up, carefully holding a glass bottle filled with water. You always suffer terribly on the first day. I put some ibuprofen on your nightstand. I carry it with me everywhere now. It's become a habit. I turned the air conditioning down a bit for you, so if you hold this, you won't get too hot. I rubbed my face and called out to stop him. Li Sheng sat properly on the chair, staring at me without blinking. Go ahead. I pointed at the clock on the wall. It's late, get out. He leaned back in his chair, slipping back into that careless, slouchy posture of his. Is it really so wrong to show some concern for a friend? I don't want to be friends with you. He rested his chin on his hand, looking thoughtful. You seem to hate me even more than you did right after we broke up. I wonder why. Li Sheng rolled his neck and stepped closer to me inch by inch. Is it because you're jealous? I pursed my lips. God, if I weren't so physically weak right now, I would have grabbed that bottle and smashed his head in. What did you say? Li Sheng puffed out his chest and took a deep breath, speaking with solemn gravity. I'm the one who let you down. I looked at him in silence, waiting to hear what disgusting thing he would say next. His hand moved up to caress my cheek, his dog eyes glistening with moisture. Yu-sen, do you still? Maybe I should just gouge his dog eyes out. Excuse me, may I come in? Li Sheng's voice cut off abruptly. I pulled my hand back and looked toward the door, blinking in stunned confusion. Li Sheng was frozen too. He turned his head to look at me, questioning me with his eyes. Standing at the door was Zhang Kuo, dressed in a sharp suit. His back was ramrod straight and his hair was gelled perfectly. Why was he dressed up like this in the middle of the night? Please come in. I rushed to the door to welcome him. Why are you being so polite with me? He walked in, his eyes fixed on the man inside the room. I heard arguing from your room and was worried something had happened to you. Li Shen stood up, trying to act like the man of the house. Please have a seat, Brother Zhang. Zhang Kuo sat down, crossing his legs and smiling warmly at Li Shen. What brings CEO Li here? Li Shen's expression darkened. He smiled through gritted teeth. Yu Chen is a friend of mine. When I came over just now, I saw your girlfriend looking everywhere for you. Zhang Kuo raised his chin slightly, a smile he couldn't quite hide playing on his lips. She must be getting anxious not finding you. It wouldn't be good if she came here and misunderstood things with Zhao Chen. It would look bad. The boss really was impressive. With just a few words, he cut off Li Shen's excuses, forcing him to leave. Once we were alone in the room, he dropped the smile. His back tensed up again as he sat in my chair, and we stared at each other in silence. Yu Sen, I'm heading back. If you feel unwell, call me. Zhang Kuo finally stood up. He took a step then glanced back at me 3 times. Finally, unable to hold back, he said with a serious expression, If you feel unwell, you really must call me. I nodded. Thank you. Only then did he leave with peace of mind, also reminding me to get up early, since tomorrow was the last day. The next day Zhang Kuo looked even more agreeable. The hair he usually combed up was now hanging down over his forehead. He was wearing a white t-shirt, looking fresh and clean. The client stood me up. So, let's just have a fun day today. He stretched his limbs, turning his head to look at me. What do you want to do? He was happy even after being stood up? I couldn't quite understand his thinking. The two of us discussed what to do for quite a while, but we couldn't seem to agree. Every time he suggested something, he immediately remembered my current physical condition. One activity after another was crossed off the list, until all that was left was looking at the sea and eating. During the meal, Wei Wei kept messaging me on WeChat. First she subtly bragged about the bonus Zhang Kuo gave her, but the topic immediately shifted to whether something was going on between me and the boss. I have to admit, Zhang Kuo is an excellent boss. In life, he's a genuinely good person too. He speaks gently and appropriately, is incredibly thoughtful, and never makes people feel uncomfortable. Why are you staring at me? He asked, eating happily. I paused. Blinking rapidly. My eyes wandered by accident. I just looked away. He leaned in close, studying me nervously over and over again. Is it better now? It's fine. Thanks for your concern. I lowered my head and shoveled rice into my mouth, completely forgetting to maintain my decent public image. My phone on the table started clattering and ringing. Wei Wei sent over a bunch of links. The charm of a daddy figure boyfriend, how to make a mature man fall in love with you. The more I looked, the more confused I got. I started typing a reply to shut her down. My fingers moved faster and faster, and I didn't pay attention to which keys I was hitting. Not long after I sent it, my WeChat blew up. Even colleagues I rarely spoke to had red notification dots flashing non-stop. You sent that to the wrong group. Withdraw it quick. The speaker volume was too loud, successfully attracting several glances. I had posted it in the main company group chat, the one with senior executives and directors in it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to bash my head against the floor. I did withdraw it, but I believe most of my colleagues had already seen it. Sure enough, someone started asking questions, wanting to know what I had sent in such a long string before deleting it. The boss across from me laughed until his eyes were little slits. He pressed down on my arm and laughed for a long time before replying. I asked her to write a daily report, and she sent it to the wrong group. Zhang Kuo started rambling in the group chat, sounding every bit the boss. I held my phone, staring at the 60-second voice message on the screen with absolutely no desire to play it. Then I noticed that Zhang Kuo's profile picture looked like the standard setting for a middle-aged man, a picture of a rising sun. I nudged planning depept Zhang Kuo and said, Your head isn't as shiny as mine. What? I was so shocked my mouth could have fit a basketball inside. Even though I withdrew it instantly, plenty of people still messaged me privately to make fun of me, especially Zhang Kuo right in front of me. He didn't even try to laugh quietly. For someone who is supposed to be a role model for subordinates, all he did was ha ha ha. Seeing my look of utter despair, he slowly stopped laughing. With a grand wave of his hand, he promised to apply for a bigger year-end bonus for me. Well, I was a little happy after that. The business trip finally ended. We dragged our exhausted bodies back to land and still had to catch a connecting flight back to the city. Unexpectedly, we ran into an old acquaintance of Zhang Kuo's on the plane. At that moment, his face turned pale and he gripped my hand tightly, his palms sweating. The woman, on the other hand, didn't react much. She sat across the aisle smiling just as warmly as ever when she saw him. Got a girlfriend? He nodded, his grip on my hand tightening even more. Makes sense. It's been so long, you should have a girlfriend. As she spoke, she leaned halfway across the aisle toward me and said, Don't let his honest look fool you. Actually, he's the most scheming one. He's the worst. Zhang Kuo frowned, looking slightly impatient. As long as my girlfriend believes me, that's all that matters. Right, I chimed in, rubbing my head against the crook of Jean-Quo's shoulder. I believe everything our little Jean says. His tense expression relaxed, and he patted the back of my hand reassuringly. We had just gotten off the plane when we ran into the woman again. She sized us up and down. You haven't been dating long, have you? I'm about to get married. I clearly felt Jean-Quo's grip on my hand tighten. He was looking right at her, but his eyes seemed a bit hollow. She invited us to her wedding. The veins on the back of Jean-Quo's hand twitched. Sure, I heard him say. They exchanged contact info, talking about notifying each other for the gift money when the time came. I was yawning continuously on the side, my eyelids so heavy I could barely keep one eye open. The woman glanced at me and deliberately moved a bit closer to Jean-Quo. Doesn't your girlfriend get jealous? Why do I have a part in this? I trust him. I lifted the hand Jean-Quo was holding, speaking weakly. He stood beside me, nodding repeatedly at my words. We are very happy. The woman laughed out loud. Are you two standing at attention or something? She couldn't have figured out we aren't a couple, right? Jean-Quo probably thought he was acting great, asking after my well-being the whole time, clearly putting on a show for her. But she had been staring at her phone typing the whole time, barely looking at him. My husband will be here in a bit. Let's eat together, she invited enthusiastically. We both stiffened and looked at each other, rejection written in both our eyes. We'd better not. Jean-Quo reached out to wrap his arm around my waist, his fingers trembling and not daring to actually touch me firmly. Seeing her confused look, I pressed his hand against me voluntarily. We're both pretty tired. She was persistent though. How tired can you be from a meal? How about right downstairs from your place? That works for us, she blinked. Don't tell me you still haven't gotten over me, Jean-Quo. Are you scared to have a meal with us? This made Jean-Quo shake his head violently, his cowlick sticking up. He looked down at me pitifully and asked, Is that okay, baby? Being called baby gave me chills down my spine. I laughed dryly. Ha ha ha, of course it's okay. The only food downstairs from my place is malatang. I had originally planned to go home, shower, and have a nice meal. Jean-Quo chose a relatively upscale restaurant near my place and told me to order whatever I liked. I glanced at the menu briefly before handing it to the woman. As soon as her husband arrived, the atmosphere at the table became subtle. One look between the two men, and there were visible sparks flying. I forgot all about eating, staring at them unblinkingly to enjoy the drama. Luckily, Jean-Quo wasn't looking for a fight, and his oppressive aura dissipated quite a bit. Even when going to the restroom, he insisted I come along, saying he was afraid it would be awkward for me to stay there alone. We squatted in the restroom thinking of countermeasures for a long time before finally settling on a plan. Something urgent suddenly came up at work, so we have to go first, I said with a look of apology. She didn't seem to believe it, but her husband persuaded her. Newly dating couples definitely need private space, just let them go. But it's not even dark yet. Are you two in that big of a rush? Seeing her soften up, I seized the opportunity. Very urgent, Jean-Quo grabbed me and turned to block me with his body. We'll be going now. Enjoy your meal, she laughed out loud. Go, look how anxious you are. Jean-Quo was a bit different today. He had been like this ever since paying the bill, completely unlike his talkative self. The ride home was exceptionally silent, and the journey had never felt this long before. Finally, we reached the entrance of my complex. I thanked him, and as soon as his car drove away, I ducked into the malatang shop next door. Sitting by the large fan at the entrance with a steaming bowl of malatang and an iced green tea, pure bliss. Just as I was watching a mystery drama, a face suddenly pressed against the glass door. Its eyes rolled around, and they lit up when they saw me. Oh, boss, why are you back? I got up and held the door curtain open for him. He rubbed his stomach. Didn't eat enough earlier. Thought about how long it's been since I had malatang, and here I run into you as soon as I walk in. Jean-Quo and I sat close together slurping noodles. He poked my arm and blinked. Watch together. I propped up my phone and moved it to the middle between us, thoughtfully rewinding to the beginning. Halfway through, he wanted to cover the screen. He made a face and stuck his tongue out. Yusen, how do you manage to eat while watching a perverted murder case like this? I immediately switched to a variety show I had just cached. It was pitch black when we came out. Jean-Quo insisted on walking me home. He said a woman walking alone at night shouldn't let her guard down even inside the complex. And he needed to see me walk through my door with his own eyes to be at ease. Sure enough, there really was a ghost. Who else could the man squatting at the building entrance be but Li Shang? He looked exhausted and walked toward me step by step, opening with a question. Why aren't you picking up my calls? Is there something you need? He lowered his head to look at me, tears welling in his eyes, his voice trembling. Grandma is sick. She wants to see you. Grandma was Li Shang's grandmother. When we were together, she used to use sickness as an excuse to trick Li Shang and me into coming over for dinner. The old lady would laugh and shake her palm leaf fan, urging us to eat more. In my memory, Grandma was very tough and healthy. Yu Chen Li Shang suddenly grabbed my hand and pressed it against his chest. I'm a bastard. I'm sorry to you. I deserve to die. I'm not human. This is all my fault. I hurt you. But... He choked up. Can you go back and see her one last time? Just as a final goodbye? I pulled my hand out. Li Sheng, I hope you understand that we have broken up. I know, he said. I swear I won't bother you again. Just this once, okay? You're still blaming me, aren't you? Li Sheng wiped his face wildly with his hand, then grabbed my hand and slapped it against his own face. Hit me, as long as it makes you feel better. What do you think you're doing? Zhang Kuo rushed forward and yanked Li Sheng's hand away. Can't you see you've scared her into tears? As if he just realized what was happening, he pointed at Zhang Kuo and asked me, looking as furious as a mad dog. So is this the reason? Because of him? It has nothing to do with him. I wiped my eyes. Just get out. Li Sheng looked at me with extreme disappointment. You feel like a complete stranger to me right now. Is it really so hard to just let Grandma see you? His chest heaved with anger and tears streamed down his face. Do we really have to let our personal issues affect everyone else? Why are you crying, Yu-sen? Did I bully you? Who are you trying to get sympathy from by acting so wronged? From the moment I met you, my nightmare began. Every time we had a conflict, it was always my fault. Everyone scolded me and told me to treat you well for the rest of my life. They talked about how hard you had it, how much you suffered. He clutched his chest, choking back sobs. But what about me, Yu-sen? No one ever knew how aggrieved or sad I was. They only saw you and only cared about your feelings. In their eyes, I was just a side character in your story. Do you know that? If I could go back, I would rather never have saved you that day. I watched Li Sheng hysterically complaining about the injustice he'd suffered over the years, but my heart was dead silent. There were no waves of emotion, even though his words stabbed right at the heart. Aside from a tightness in my chest that made it hard to breathe, I didn't actually feel that much pain. I sighed. Li Sheng, whether or not I visit Grandma while she's sick is entirely up to me. It has nothing to do with you. What business is it of yours whether I go see her or not? How does it affect you either way? What gives you the right to act so self-righteously and order me around? Is that what I wanted, Li Sheng? Did I want those things to happen? Did I want people's pity? Suddenly, it felt like I was transported back to those days, besides the people cursing at me. There were so many people who were good to me. They organized fundraisers in my name and released my photos without my consent. Almost everyone who saw me would shake their heads, call me pitiful, and declare that my life was ruined. But this is my life. Why should it be judged and belittled by others at will? I took a deep breath and looked up at his bewildered expression. Is this your definition of a friend? Is that what your parents taught you? Li Sheng pursed his lips and fell silent. That made sense. Back then, Li Sheng had received so many awards for saving me. He gave interviews on TV, basking in the limelight, becoming the little hero everyone admired. When we were together, he was the perfect child relatives held up as an example. Now that we've broken up, he still wants to latch onto me to maintain his image as a good guy. You make me sick. Li Sheng moved his lips as if he wanted to say more, but I cut him off. I'm crying because I wasn't worth it. I'm sad because I blame myself for being so weak and incompetent. I hate myself for not leaving you sooner. From this moment on, I had absolutely no affection left for Li Sheng. Even if there had been a towering love for him, it had been completely worn away. Li Sheng walked away alone, stumbling, his figure looking lonely. I smoothed my hair and, under Zhang Kuo's watchful gaze, put on a smile to tell him I was fine. He pointed at my face. Your makeup is all smudged from crying. I just did that to get him to leave faster. I really hate him. I pretended to be angry and turned my head away, letting my falling hair cover my face. I won't walk you out. Bye-bye. With my back to him, I wiped the tears off my phone screen with my finger and muttered. The battery's almost dead anyway. Yu-sen, apart from being your boss, I can actually be your friend. He walked up to me, tilting his head back, his Adam's apple bobbing. You don't want people to see that you're upset, right? I won't look. Go ahead and wipe your tears. He held a folded tissue in his hand. You don't have to hide yourself away. If you need to let it out, let it out. Holding it in for too long will wreck your health. After I took the tissue, Zhang Kuo asked nervously if it was okay for him to look at me now. Just like that, his awkwardness broke through my defenses, and I almost burst out laughing. Are you really that quick at switching your emotions? He looked at me in a daze. Then the corners of his mouth curled up. Good, good. That's good. He didn't ask about what happened between Li Sheng and me. Instead, he just told me embarrassing stories from when he first started in the industry. He was telling them with such a straight face, but I couldn't stop laughing, leaning back and forth, completely forgetting he was my boss. The next day, Zhang Kuo specifically called me into his office and told me to keep those stories to myself. I naturally raised my hand and swore that a third person would never find out. As soon as I walked out the door, Wei Wei cornered me. Are you two together now? I shook my head. Absolutely not. Then does he like you? Even though I had uncontrollably wondered about that myself, the boss has already made it clear he can't get over his ex-girlfriend. I wasn't going to delude myself. Absolutely not. Two absolutelys in a row made Wei Wei very suspicious. She pestered me with a new round of questioning. She told me to seize the opportunity. Look, Zhang Kuo might be a bit older than you, but he doesn't look old at all. Look at how fair and clean he looks. Just like my family's Yuan Bao. Yuan Bao was Weiwei's Samoyed. Everyone privately called the boss Zhang Kuo, but Weiwei kept calling him Yuan Bao, which almost made me call him that to his face. After asking Zhang Kuo for time off, I packed my things overnight and headed back to my hometown. Grandma said she wasn't used to staying in hospitals in the big city, so Li Sheng had no choice but to hire a private doctor and stay with her at the small house. When I arrived at Grandma's house, the yard was bustling with noise. Grandma sat in her wheelchair, her short silver hair combed neatly, and she was directing the killing of a chicken. The young man running around the yard chasing the chicken in a dark green hoodie was none other than Li Sheng. Grandma waved me over. Seeing me staring intently at that back, she looked a bit embarrassed. Sixy, I was the one who asked Li Sheng to come back. Don't blame him. I shook my head and threw myself into Grandma's arms. I came back this time to keep you company. It has nothing to do with him. I'll tell Grandma the truth after dinner tonight. I made a silent decision. After chatting with Grandma for a while, my mouth felt dry. A hand holding a cup of water reached out from behind me, and Li Sheng's head popped into view. He looked at me and said softly, Sixy, have some water. Grandma covered her mouth with both hands, blinking her eyes again and again. She looked just like she was trying to play matchmaker. Thanks, but I don't need it. I gave a fake laugh, stood up straight, and sidestepped him to walk into the kitchen. The sound of rushing water filled the air as my mom supervised me washing and picking vegetables. Li Sheng stood at the door for a good while before finally speaking. Auntie, I want to talk to Sixy. My mom ignored him, shook her hands dry and walked out. In the outer room of the kitchen, it was just the two of us staring at each other. If he wasn't going to speak, I would treat him like he was invisible and just focus on my work. Ji, Yu Sen, can't we just peacefully coexist for now? Li Sheng's hands were clasped tightly together, and his forehead was covered in beads of sweat. He stood blocking the door like a block of wood, not moving an inch. I wiped the water stains off my apron with the back of my hand, answering him with my actions. I climbed onto the windowsill and jumped out, ignoring him completely. It was nearly dinner time. A large round table was set up in the courtyard, with everyone sitting around, chatting and laughing. Grandma insisted that the two of us sit right next to her. Before I could react, Li Sheng grabbed my hand and pulled me down to sit right beside her. Sixy, let's sit here. He was holding on tight. I tried to pull my hand back but couldn't. Li Sheng hurried up and served Zixi a sausage roll. Grandma loved this kind of atmosphere. Her face had become much rosier. Under my smiling gaze, Li Sheng shakily picked up a piece of lean meat and put it in my bowl. Zixi is a girl. Greasy sausage rolls aren't good for her. Eat this instead. If you keep holding onto me, I'm going to starve to death. Taking advantage of his distraction, I abruptly lifted the dog paw he was holding me with under the table, as if burned. Li Sheng let go of my hand at lightning speed and lowered his head to shovel rice into his mouth. I took a deep breath and silently moved my chair away. Just smelling his scent now made me want to slap him. After dinner, my dad brought out bright red watermelon and told everyone to eat. Li Sheng was the best at currying favor, busy passing out watermelon back and forth, his mouth incredibly sweet. Here, Sixy, take this. The smile on his face hadn't faded. Looking at me, he seemed just like the boy from back then. I covered my mouth in surprise, accepting the watermelon with both hands, looking as if I were about to cry. I called out to him softly, Brother Li Sheng, you served me food and now you're giving me watermelon. Won't your girlfriend get jealous if she finds out? The surroundings fell silent. Li Sheng's smile froze on his face, and he stiffly twisted his neck. No, she's not that petty. I nodded, took small steps over to his side, looked up, and asked cautiously, You came back here with me. Won't your girlfriend get angry if she finds out? Before he could speak, Grandma slapped the table and stood up, pointing at Li Sheng with eyes wide open in anger. You and Shixi broke up? Yes, Grandma, I shouted loudly, drowning out the sound of Li Sheng trying to stammer out an explanation. Grandma hugged me as I whimpered and cried, soothing me, and I took the opportunity to leak the fact that he had cheated on me and slapped me. After saying it, I covered my mouth, not daring to look at Li Sheng's face, which had turned pitch black, and curled up in Grandma's arms, crying so hard I couldn't catch my breath. Li Sheng's dad was also furious. He grabbed Li Sheng by the collar and was about to start hitting him. Li Sheng's eyes were bloodshot as he struggled and rushed toward me. Sixy, it's not like that. I can explain. Just listen to me. In the end, Li Sheng was dragged away by my mom and the others for interrogation, and I stayed with Grandma, lying on a cool mat with a fan blowing on us. Grandma had given up on the idea of matchmaking us. She held my hand, tears falling from her cloudy eyes. She was afraid I wouldn't find someone to entrust my life to. You will definitely live a long life. I hugged her, choking back tears. I didn't tell Grandma that I could be alone, that a lifetime is just a short time, and I can live very well by myself. I just hugged her and lied to her, lying that I would start a family, get married, and have children. The next day, the scorching sun was hot enough to crack the ground. Braving the blazing heat, I was sent by my mom to fetch fresh milk. I held a glass bottle in my left hand, held a small floral umbrella in my right, wore Grandma's floral shirt and panted my way down the road. You Sen! A somewhat familiar shout reached me. I turned my head in confusion and immediately rushed over, raising my umbrella, speaking incoherently from shock. Oh my god, I can't believe I can see you here. Zhang Kuo raised a hand to wipe his face and told me that his ex-girlfriend had a falling out with her fiancé, gave him a call and ran here. He came looking for her but ended up getting lost. Why did she run all the way here? I really didn't understand. Seeing that his skin under his short sleeves was red from the sun, I quickly led him to the small shop's canopy, borrowed a large fan from the owner, and pointed it right at him. He was probably dizzy from the heat. He couldn't speak smoothly, saying one thing here and another there, making me scratch my head in confusion. Do you think I'm pretty silly? He held a small popsicle in his hand, lowered his head, and the stubborn strand of hair sticking up looked like drooping ears. He was pretty silly indeed, but I shook my head. How could that be? I bravely patted him on the shoulder. You only live once. Follow your heart. My heart? He stared intently at me, his gaze lowering slightly, his voice soft. Actually, it's been quite a while since I saw you. I thoughtfully handed him a tissue. Here, wipe your sweat. I'm very happy, he said. I turned my head away, thinking to myself that the weather really was hot today. The reason Zhang Kuo chased all the way here was that his ex-girlfriend sent him a picture of the mountain. He found this place through the location search but got lost. I remember her hometown seems to be here too, but it's not safe for her to go up the mountain alone just after arguing with her husband. The boss glanced at me, then sighed repeatedly. Always so willful. I stared at that picture, looked up at him and said, I'll take you there. I knew that place. It wasn't too far, but the road was a bit hard to walk. Zhang Kuo grabbed my hand, his eyes practically lighting up with excitement. Thank you, Yu-san. I smiled and nodded, telling him we should wait until the sun wasn't so harsh before leaving. I realized I was feeling some abnormal emotions. This was not a good sign. Zhang Kuo followed behind me, walking with a light step. He was extraordinarily talkative today, wanting to tell me everything, even his bank card password. I asked him, seemingly casually, Are you here this time to win back your true love? He froze for a moment. What true love? Then he turned his head and smiled. You could say that. This person was really strange. I couldn't quite understand what he was saying. The weather gradually darkened, dark clouds covering the sunlight, and dull thunder rumbled in the distance. Zhang Kuo, who had been full of spirit just moments ago, was now tightly following behind me, practically stepping into my footprints the moment my heels left the ground. Aren't you hot? I walked a few steps faster to create some distance. He caught up again, lowering his head and answering seriously, a little. I deliberately leaned in to stare at his dodging eyes, my voice laced with laughter. Are you afraid of thunder? He pressed down on my shoulder, his ears turning red at a speed visible to the naked eye, yet he still argued stubbornly. How could I be? I'm afraid that you are. I hugged my arms, laughing uncontrollably. It's no big deal, I'll tell you one of my little secrets too. He turned sideways but didn't move, his ears clearly perked up. I covered my mouth with my palm, stood on tiptoe to get close to him, and whispered, I'm afraid of birds. Sure enough, Zhang Kuo's eyes rolled, blinking and shining brightly. You're actually afraid of birds? Suddenly, a clap of thunder rumbled, startling the two of us into jumping half a meter into the air. He wiped his face indiscriminately, closed his eyes for a moment, as if having made some decision. A warm, slightly damp sensation came from my palm, followed by his fingers pressing down, tightly grabbing my hand. Can I hold your hand while we walk? He was already holding it, yet he still asked me that kind of question. I'm just a tiny bit afraid. I felt Zhang Kuo's hand trembling, but he pretended to be calm as he pulled me forward. Let's go, let's go. Once we find her, we'll go home. Throughout the walk, I told him all about how I developed a psychological trauma regarding cute little birds. I described it so vividly that Zhang Kuo's crisp laughter echoed far into the distance. From afar, we spotted Mo Jing sitting in the pavilion. Zhang Kuo breathed a sigh of relief and rubbed his temple. Found her at last. I looked up at the sky. It was still overcast, but the thunder had stopped. I moved the hand he was holding tightly, but he squeezed it back even harder, our fingers intertwining. I was scared. The thunder stopped. Zhang Kuo seemed to just realize this and let go of my hand, scratching his head awkwardly. I'm going to have a quick word with her. Can you wait here for a moment? I nodded. Go ahead. He glanced back at me before leaving, as if he wanted to say something. I couldn't read his expression. I just saw the two figures in the distance, one standing and one sitting. It was only a moment before Zhang Kuo jogged back. He studied my face for a while. Why do I feel like you are unhappy? I immediately rubbed my face to compose myself and forced a smile. Not at all. Is she not coming back with us? I asked, looking back at the person still sitting in the pavilion. Mo Jing's husband will be here any minute. We should head home too. Zhang Kuo walked ahead of me, occasionally throwing out some outdated jokes to amuse me. He said that while he couldn't solve the root of my unhappiness, he could help me forget about it for a while. When I think about it in a few days, maybe it won't be so bothersome. I nodded. Does Miss Mo's husband know she's here? Zhang Kuo nodded casually. Of course, her husband is actually from your hometown too. That put my mind at ease. But I really didn't expect that in such a short time, the news of my relationship would spread through the entire neighborhood. A crowd gathered around us, interrogating Zhang Kuo so thoroughly they probably knew where his ancestors were buried. Just a frail pretty boy. Did you bring him back from the KTV where you work? A man emerged from nowhere, full of disdain. He cracked sunflower seeds in his mouth with a loud crunch, chewing while winking at me. You young girls always like those soft sissy men. I crossed my arms and sneered. Do you work there? You think everyone is in your trade? I bet he could smash your bird head in with one punch, believe it or not. The man instantly threw his seeds and bared his teeth, rushing up to teach me a lesson, shouting that he would rip my mouth off. I rolled up my sleeves, ready to tear his foul mouth all the way to his ears. Zhang Kuo rushed over and held me back with one arm. The veins on his neck bulged, his jaw clenched as he gritted his teeth and stared the man down. Try touching her. The man didn't dare make a move. Under Zhang Kuo's glare, he didn't even utter a dirty word and slunk away. Third aunt hurriedly pulled my arm, signaling me to take Zhang Kuo home to avoid these people. Don't conflict with them. Hurry up and bring your boyfriend home to show your mother. Third aunt. This is really my boss. I held her hand and explained seriously. She nodded perfunctorily, then immediately asked when we were planning to get married. Zhang Kuo dragged me away from the battlefield. It was getting late, and we couldn't make it back to the city. He had to stay at my place. We hadn't bought the milk either. Facing my mother's gaze that looked like she wanted to eat someone alive, my legs were shaking as I stepped over the threshold. Just as my mother was about to speak, I yanked Zhang Kuo inside and told her my leader was here for a visit. My mother instantly changed her demeanor, smiling and pulling him to sit down. Zhang Kuo, who had just been happily bantering with the crowd, now sat awkwardly fidgeting. Under my mother's expectant gaze, he spun tales about how capable I was and how I had solved his big trouble. Thank you, leader. For taking care of Yu-Chen, she would definitely work even harder. My mother felt I had truly grown up and insisted that Zhang Kuo stay for dinner. I chuckled and told my mom that Zhang Kuo would need to stay the night. As mealtime approached, my mom dragged me into the kitchen and bombarded me with questions. I raised my hands and swore, the leader is really just the leader. I mean, don't just agree to things so carelessly. I turned my face away, fiddling with the beaded door curtain. You're overthinking it, Mom. What did I agree to? He's just my superior at the company. She sighed, straightened my shoulders and looked into my eyes. Don't let him fool you. I nodded repeatedly like a pecking chicken. She pushed the door open and instantly changed her face again, her smile looking genuinely happy. Xiao Zhang, dinner's ready. The food in Zhang Kuo's bowl was piled up like a small mountain. My mom was still afraid he wasn't full enough. Even my favorite braised pork, I didn't get much of it. Most of it went into his stomach. I'm starting to wonder if bringing him back was a mistake. Sixi, a middle-aged man ran in from outside. Grandma is calling you, hurry up and take your partner to see her. My mom slammed her chopsticks down. I immediately stood up. Dad, don't worry, I'm going now, drink some water first. My dad stayed behind to comfort my mom. The person referred to as my partner, Zhang Kuo, consciously trotted along behind me. What do we do later? He nudged my shoulder. I originally planned to explain things clearly to Grandma too, but looking at her expectant eyes, I suddenly couldn't bring myself to say it. She held Zhang Kuo's hand, sighing repeatedly and saying that I had found someone better than Li Sheng. Grandma, actually, this is my... Grandma Yusen talks about you all the time, so this time I thought I'd come back to see you. Zhang Kuo lowered himself to be at eye level with Grandma, his expression sincere. Grandma's cloudy eyes kept shedding tears, and her hand holding his trembled. Sixi has had a hard life. All these years, she hasn't truly been happy for a moment. If you like her, don't let her down. He nodded solemnly, a faint smile on his lips. I swear to you, I will treat Yusen very, very well for the rest of my life. Our eyes met, and I unconsciously locked gazes with his curved smiling eyes. Suddenly, I couldn't hear the sounds around me clearly. The dim yellow light shone down, casting a halo around him. I could even see his fine hair swaying slightly in the wind, and the tiny fuzz on his cheeks. Grandma was in surprisingly good spirits today. The two of us chatted with her for a long while until drowsiness took over and she fell asleep. The courtyard was pitch black. I held a flashlight in one hand and pulled Zhang Kuo with the other as we walked out one after the other. Unexpectedly, he suddenly stumbled and pressed against my back, his warm breath instantly fanning across my face. I jolted in fright and almost screamed, but he just let out a muffled laugh and reached out to take my flashlight. I'll hold the light, you walk behind me. I don't know where I got the courage, but I poked his spine and snorted. You scared me on purpose, stop it. He shrank his neck. It tickles. All of a sudden he stopped, and I bumped right into him. An overwhelming scent of cologne made me a bit dizzy. I pulled my head back and asked, "What's wrong?" Zhang Kuo glanced sideways, and that's when I noticed Li Sheng blocking the doorway. Grandma just fell asleep. Are you two in that much of a hurry to wake her up? I really couldn't handle how aggressive he was right off the bat. Zhang Kuo pressed down on my hand. Sorry about that, we're leaving now. Li Sheng let out a cold snort. You've already woken her up, so stop saying useless things. Then what do you suggest? I stepped in front of my boss in one stride, looking up at Li Sheng. Perhaps sensing the hostility in my gaze, his aura weakened a bit. Come outside with me. I have something to say to you without waiting for an answer. He grabbed my arm to drag me out the door, slapping away Zhangkuo's reaching hand. His expression was dark and gloomy. Don't wake Grandma. Once we were outside, he let go of my hand as I struggled. He was still breathing heavily from anger, staring at me without saying a word. I rolled my eyes at him. What do you actually want? If you're not going to say it, I'm leaving. Are you really dating Zhangkuo? If you're that bored, why don't you go loosen the dirt at a cemetery? Seeing me prepare to leave, he reached out to pull me again, leaning in close. What exactly do you think Zhangkuo sees in you? If he doesn't see it in me, then I guess he sees it in you. I didn't want to say another unnecessary word. He could say whatever he wanted. Li Shang looked like he wanted to speak but stopped, as if hiding something behind his eyes. I suddenly took half a step back, covering my chest. What? Are you regretting it, and trying to win me back? He laughed in anger. The nerve of you. You really think highly of yourself? He had called me out just to vent his anger on me. While he was distracted, I turned around, dashed through the door, and dragged Zhangkuo away as we ran. Zhangkuo followed behind me, his eyes shining as he laughed. I thought you weren't coming back for me. I waved my hand, pulled him into the house, and grabbed some chilled watermelon from the fridge. We sat on small stools and finished it, bite by bite. Tomorrow's the last day. Let me take you to look around here. His lips were glistening from the watermelon juice. He nodded excitedly upon hearing this. Yes. Early the next morning, my mom banged on my bedroom door loud enough to shake the sky. It's already 8 o'clock, and you're still not up. Little Zhang is waiting outside for you. I scrambled out of bed to get dressed and change. In my haste, I accidentally snapped a strap and knocked my eyeshadow palette off the table. By the time I finished my makeup and picked up my phone, it was exactly 7 o'clock, tricked by my mom again. Going out, I saw Zhangkuo sitting with his back to me on a small stool. He was wearing a blue short-sleeve shirt today, which made his skin look even fairer. He turned his head to look at me, a smile in his eyes. Auntie's dough drop soup is delicious. I finished 2 bowls. My mom secretly pulled me aside. Don't let little Zhang eat too much, he'll get a stomachache. I walked over and picked up his bowl. Stop eating, boss. Save some room. I'm taking you to eat something good today. His gaze traveled from my legs up to my hair. You're wearing this today? I shook the hem of my skirt. What about it? It's a bit short. He touched his nose unnaturally. What else should I do? Wear long pants in this heat? Come on, let's go. He grabbed another bite of my mom's secret pickled vegetables and stuffed it into his mouth. Aren't you eating breakfast? I'll eat out. First, I took him to tour the scenic spots of my hometown. After leaving the temple, we strolled through the surrounding antique-style shops. Zhangkuo was in high spirits, looking left and right, not tired at all. Just as I was hesitating over whether to buy a bracelet for 30 yuan, Zhangkuo pressed down my outstretched hand with a single motion. 10 yuan. The stall owner immediately told us to look elsewhere. I tried to turn back in a panic, but I was locked in place by his arm gripping my shoulder. Don't be in a rush, he whispered, pressing close to my ear. When we go out, don't say you bought it here. The stall owner reluctantly called us back. As I excitedly shook the bracelet, Zhangkuo looked thoughtful. Actually, we could have bargained it down even more. This is your hometown. Don't you know that the prices at the shops around the temple are unreasonable? I scratched my head in embarrassment. I rarely come here either. Where to next? Seeing it was almost noon, I took him into a local specialty restaurant. The enthusiastic owner gave us a complimentary fruit wine. The ice-cold wine went down, and I couldn't help but shiver. My irritable mood was swept away, and I excitedly discussed the history of the temple with Zhangkuo. The fruit wine had a strong kick. I watched Zhangkuo's face getting redder and redder. How did you drink so much? Maybe I was a bit fierce, because he shrank his neck, his cheeks flushed. It was just tasty. I couldn't help myself. I was really furious with him. The afternoon's plans were completely ruined. On the way home, I walked silently in front, while Zhangkuo followed carefully behind. Actually, I can still play. I'm not dizzy. No way, you smell like alcohol. Then what do we do? Take it off. No can do. He pressed down the hem of his shirt, the corners of his eyes red. Wait for me to go back and change clothes, then come out with you again. I'd see a ghost before I believed him. Sure enough, the moment he stepped into the courtyard, he rushed back into his room. A moment later, he was standing straight at the door waiting for me. For safety's sake, I didn't take him out after all. We just curled up on the living room sofa playing video games. Zhangkuo was playing a support character, stumbling along behind me. I was getting pinched from front and back, and I was about to be low on health in my anxiety. I slapped his thigh hard. Jump on me, quick! He turned his face away. That doesn't seem right with how slow he was being. I was already respawning. Sorry, Yu-sen. Zhangkuo hung his head like a puppy that had done something wrong. I mean, our base seems to have been stolen by the enemy. I watched helplessly as our crystal exploded. I took a deep breath. It's fine, it's no big deal. I didn't play games with him anymore. Thinking it was the last day, I took him to see Grandma. I heard Li Shen had left early this morning. I couldn't describe how happy I was not to have to see him. Zhangkuo and Grandma got along famously. We didn't leave until night fell. Originally, I was going to take him to the snack street, but he had been yawning constantly since the afternoon. He wouldn't rest, insisting on keeping Grandma company to watch Peking opera, go to sleep early. We're leaving tomorrow. I lit the mosquito coil for him and left the room. He leaned against the door, looking at me with a smile full of joy. What are you smiling at? I touched my own face. I'm just happy. I can't help but smile. I don't know if I was infected by him, but a trace of joy actually rose in my heart too. I slept with my mom tonight. She didn't say anything, but tears kept falling, plopping down endlessly. She held me and cried for a good while. The next morning, Zhang Kuo and I boarded the bus to the city together. My mom didn't come to see me off. I knew she was hiding at home crying by herself. My dad handed me the luggage, his eyes rimmed with red. Work hard. Don't worry about home. If you don't have enough money, tell us. Don't push yourself too hard out there, girl. Remember to tell dad if you have any grievances. I was afraid that if I stayed any longer, I wouldn't be able to leave. Until Zhang Kuo pulled me to a seat, the tears on my face just wouldn't stop. I really envy you for having so many family members who love you. He handed me a stack of tissues and leaned his head back against the chair. I grew up under my parents' curses and scolding. They always said I wasn't as good as others. That's not true. I didn't bother to wipe my tears as I looked earnestly at his face. You are excellent. You are gentle and polite, and your working ability is very strong. Everyone says you are a good leader. You have really done well enough. The smile on Zhang Kuo's face gradually faded, and he stared at me without blinking. He told me about his previous life, proposals he worked on day and night being rejected, and partnerships that were about to succeed being snatched away by others. Then what about you, Yusen? In your heart, what kind of person am I really? I turned my head away, not daring to look into his eyes. My brain was spinning fast, but I felt that nothing I could say would be appropriate. He smiled. Forget it, I won't ask. Don't be nervous. I breathed a sigh of relief. My intuition told me I shouldn't answer him. It had been a month since we returned to the city. Today, Zhang Ku specially treated me to dinner, saying he wanted to make up for getting drunk and not going out to have fun with me that time. He was leaning against his car, and when he saw me come out, he walked up to meet me. I had spent some time dressing up today, a black velvet long dress paired with my newly curled brown hair, and I was wearing perfume I had spent a fortune on. You look really beautiful today, he said with genuine admiration. I calmly made a sound of agreement. And a small flower bloomed somewhere in my heart. Zhang Kuo specially chose a retro-style restaurant spot. We found a spot by the window and sat side by side. He said it was because the scenery on my side was better that we sat in a row. I looked at his face and finally understood what he said that night. It really makes you happy, so I couldn't help but want to smile. But the harmonious atmosphere was broken by an uninvited guest just a few minutes later. We stared blankly at a woman who had suddenly barged in. She stood there crying her heart out. Zhang Kuo, do you still love me? The surroundings were already in an uproar. I gripped my chopsticks tightly, looking at Mo Jing without saying a word. What are you talking about? Zhang Kuo's face darkened slightly. Please leave. I asked if you still love me. She suddenly leaned forward and swept the bowls and chopsticks off the table, causing them to crash to the floor with a clatter. Zhang Kuo didn't speak. I had never seen him look so gloomy. Mo Jing's exquisite makeup was ruined, but she didn't care, persistently forcing him for an answer. You said you were going to marry me. Have you forgotten? Zhang Kuo turned sideways to block me, his face iron gray. I have a new life now, please leave. But isn't she just someone you're using to make me angry? Mo Jing asked, aggrieved and on the verge of tears. Don't tell me you've actually fallen in love with her? Zhang Kuo looked serious. He held my hand tightly with one hand, giving it a comforting squeeze, and stared straight into Mo Jing's eyes. Yes, she acted as if she had heard some funny joke, laughing as she collapsed onto the chair and pounding the table continuously. A woman who was raped. What exactly do you love about her? In that moment, I felt like I couldn't hear anything clearly. My head was buzzing, and a chill shot from the soles of my feet straight to the top of my head. I couldn't even feel my hands. It was like a tightly stretched string snapping, and I could only keep telling myself not to faint. Now the facade of normalcy I had maintained was completely torn apart. All the ugly, filthy and dirty insides were exposed before everyone's eyes. I heard the sound of people gasping. I was incredibly anxious and terrified. Were they like those people before, bringing up my experience over and over again? Don't cry. A palm covered my eyes, and my eye sockets felt wet and hot. I felt him press my tense body into his arms. His movements gentle but firm. This isn't her fault. Zhang Kuo's voice was incredibly calm. When it comes down to it, this is just my own secret crush. She is so dazzling and bright, and I am trying to be worthy of her. Mo Jing wanted to say something else, swaying unsteadily on her feet. If you spread rumors and cause trouble in public again, I will have to call the police. Zhang Kuo's usually gentle and elegant face looked particularly terrifying at this moment. You had better understand what you are saying. She fell back into her chair, her eyes full of disbelief. I don't know who said something that made my scalp explode. Isn't this just the wife coming to find her husband, and the mistress is playing the victim, relying on a scumbag to act like an innocent white lotus? My face was distorted with anger, and I couldn't control myself as I roared and stood up. Say that again one more time? Got anxious, didn't we? Looks like it's a confirmed fact then. The man spat, his eyes full of disdain. My teeth were numb from clenching them as I suppressed the impulse to knock him out with one punch. The people around us, full of so-called good intentions, tried to persuade us that it was better to cause less trouble and to be forgiving whenever possible. I wanted to laugh as I heard this, my eye sockets burning hot. If these things happened to you, would you still be so generous? So what if I was raped? I took a deep breath, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. Rape is forced sexual intercourse against a woman's will. Does being raped mean I can never hold my head up for the rest of my life? I walked towards Mo Jing step by step, my voice sounding like it was crying blood. On what grounds? She sat in the chair, looking at me in panic. I didn't do it on purpose. I was just too sad. Just because you were raped, the whole world has to let you have your way? Why don't you just die and be done with it? It was the same man again. My fists were creaking, but before I could raise them, someone beat me to it. Zhang Kuo was like a furious lion, his eyes terrifyingly red. He rode on top of the man, smashing his fist down again and again, a sight that made everyone's heart tremble. Stop fighting, you're going to kill someone. Murder! My consciousness snapped back, and I rushed forward with all my might to pull him away. He raised his head, his fierce expression not yet withdrawn. Blood was trickling down his forehead, and he instantly looked helpless. Yu Sen. I didn't bother to wipe my tears, stubbornly reaching up to wipe the blood off his face. In the end, we went to the police station. The matter was settled privately. The other party gave a written apology, and we bore the corresponding compensation. Zhang Kuo drove me home. After a silent journey, he finally spoke. Everything I said just now was serious. The car slowly came to a stop, and he turned to look at me. I told you about this not to get an answer from you. Please don't feel burdened. I wanted to cry, my nose feeling incredibly sore. Why would he like someone like me? What about me is worth liking? Zhang Kuo saw me to the door. Just as the door was closing, he held it open with his hand. You are really good. You deserve all the good things in the world. I tried my best to force a smile. Thank you, he said goodnight and thoughtfully closed the door for me. That night I lay in bed. In the darkness, the past came flooding back like a tide. The bite marks on my arm throbbed faintly, and the smell of blood filled my mouth. In a haze, I returned to that afternoon again. The man's heavy breathing got closer and closer. He kept saying he loved me, but his hands were messing around inside my clothes. Yu Sen, you have to listen to the teacher, okay? When I woke up with a start, my pillowcase was already soaked with tears. I was afraid that if I stayed any longer, I wouldn't be able to leave, until Zhang Kuo pulled me to a seat. The tears on my face just wouldn't stop. I really envy you for having so many family members who love you. He handed me a stack of tissues and leaned his head back against the chair. I grew up under my parents' curses and scolding. They always said I wasn't as good as others. That's not true. I didn't bother to wipe my tears as I looked earnestly at his face. You are excellent. You are gentle and polite, and your working ability is very strong. Everyone says you are a good leader. You have really done well enough. The smile on Zhang Kuo's face gradually faded, and he stared at me without blinking. He told me about his previous life, proposals he worked on day and night being rejected, and partnerships that were about to succeed being snatched away by others. Then what about you, Yu Sen? In your heart, what kind of person am I really? I turned my head away, not daring to look into his eyes. My brain was spinning fast, but I felt that nothing I could say would be appropriate. He smiled. Forget it, I won't ask. Don't be nervous. I breathed a sigh of relief. My intuition told me I shouldn't answer him. It had been a month since we returned to the city. Today, Zhang Kuo specially treated me to dinner, saying he wanted to make up for getting drunk and not going out to have fun with me that time. He was leaning against his car, and when he saw me come out, he walked up to meet me. I had spent some time dressing up today, a black velvet long dress paired with my newly curled brown hair, and I was wearing perfume I had spent a fortune on. You look really beautiful today, he said with genuine admiration. I calmly made a sound of agreement, and a small flower bloomed somewhere in my heart. Zhang Ku specially chose a retro-style restaurant. We found a spot by the window and sat side by side. He said it was because the scenery on my side was better that we sat in a row. I looked at his face and finally understood what he said that night. It really makes you happy, so I couldn't help but want to smile. But the harmonious atmosphere was broken by an uninvited guest just a few minutes later. We stared blankly at the woman who had suddenly barged in. She stood there crying her heart out. Zhang Kuo, do you still love me? The surroundings were already in an uproar. I gripped my chopsticks tightly, looking at Mo Jing without saying a word. What are you talking about? Zhang Kuo's face darkened slightly. Please leave. I asked if you still love me. She suddenly leaned forward and swept the bowls and chopsticks off the table, causing them to crash to the floor with a clatter. Zhang Kuo didn't speak. I had never seen him look so gloomy. Mo Jing's exquisite makeup was ruined, but she didn't care, persistently forcing him for an answer. You said you were going to marry me. Have you forgotten? Zhang Kuo turned sideways to block me, his face iron gray. I have a new life now. Please leave. But isn't she just someone you're using to make me angry? Mo Jing asked, aggrieved and on the verge of tears. Don't tell me you've actually fallen in love with her. Zhang Kuo looked serious. He held my hand tightly with one hand, giving it a comforting squeeze, and stared straight into Mojing's eyes. Yes. She acted as if she had heard some funny joke, laughing as she collapsed onto the chair and pounding the table continuously. A woman who was raped, what exactly do you love about her? In that moment, I felt like I couldn't hear anything clearly. My head was buzzing, and a chill shot from the soles of my feet straight to the top of my head. I couldn't even feel my hands. It was like a tightly stretched string snapping, and I could only keep telling myself not to faint. Now, the facade of normalcy I had maintained was completely torn apart. All the ugly, filthy, and dirty insides were exposed before everyone's eyes. I heard the sound of people gasping. I was incredibly anxious and terrified. Were they like those people before, bringing up my experience over and over again? Don't cry. A palm covered my eyes, and my eye sockets felt wet and hot. I felt him press my tense body into his arms, his movements gentle but firm. This isn't her fault. Zhang Kuo's voice was incredibly calm. When it comes down to it, this is just my own secret crush. She is so dazzling and bright, and I am trying to be worthy of her. Mojing wanted to say something else, swaying unsteadily on her feet. If you spread rumors and cause trouble in public again, I will have to call the police. Zhang Kuo's usually gentle and elegant face looked particularly terrifying at this moment. You had better understand what you are saying. She fell back into her chair, her eyes full of disbelief. I don't know who said something that made my scalp explode. Isn't this just a wife coming to find her husband? And the mistress is playing the victim, relying on the scumbag to act like an innocent white lotus. My face was distorted with anger, and I couldn't control myself as I roared and stood up. Say that again one more time? Got anxious, didn't we? Looks like it's a confirmed fact then. The man spat, his eyes full of disdain. My teeth were numb from clenching them as I suppressed the impulse to knock him out with one punch. The people around us, full of so-called good intentions, tried to persuade us that it was better to cause less trouble and to be forgiving whenever possible. I wanted to laugh as I heard this, my eye sockets burning hot. If these things happened to you, would you still be so generous? So, what if I was raped? I took a deep breath, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. Rape is forced sexual intercourse against a woman's will. Does being raped mean I can never hold my head up for the rest of my life? I walked towards Mojing step by step, my voice sounding like it was crying blood. On what grounds? She sat in the chair, looking at me in panic. I didn't do it on purpose, I was just too sad. Just because you were raped, the whole world has to let you have your way? Why don't you just die and be done with it? It was the same man again. My fists were creaking, but before I could raise them, someone beat me to it. Zhang Kuo was like a furious lion, his eyes terrifyingly red. He rode on top of the man, smashing his fist down again and again. A sight that made everyone's heart tremble. Stop fighting. Stop fighting. You're going to kill someone. Murder. My consciousness snapped back, and I rushed forward with all my might to pull him away. He raised his head, his fierce expression not yet withdrawn. Blood was trickling down his forehead, and he instantly looked helpless. Yu Chen. I didn't bother to wipe my tears, stubbornly reaching up to wipe the blood off his face. In the end, we went to the police station. The matter was settled privately, the other party gave a written apology, and we bore the corresponding compensation. Zhang Kuo drove me home. After a silent journey, he finally spoke. Everything I said just now was serious. The car slowly came to a stop, and he turned to look at me. I told you about this not to get an answer from you. Please don't feel burdened. I wanted to cry. My nose feeling incredibly sore. Why would he like someone like me? What about me is worth liking? Zhang Kuo saw me to the door. Just as the door was closing, he held it open with his hand. You are really good. You deserve all the good things in the world. I tried my best to force a smile. Thank you. He said goodnight and thoughtfully closed the door for me. That night I lay in bed. In the darkness, the past came flooding back like a tide. The bite marks on my arm throbbed faintly, and the smell of blood filled my mouth. In a haze, I returned to that afternoon again. The man's heavy breathing got closer and closer. He kept saying he loved me, but his hands were messing around inside my clothes. Yusen, you have to listen to the teacher, okay? When I woke up with a start, my pillowcase was already soaked with tears. The phone rang. It was Mom. Sweetie. Do you have enough money on you? Yes, I have plenty. I'm eating and drinking well every day. Dad snatched the phone. That's my daughter Sen, always making me proud. Mom's voice carried a smug tone. Well, look whose daughter she is. It wasn't that I hadn't thought about ending my life. All these years, the only thing keeping me going was them. People also advised me, you just have too much pride, torturing yourself every day. Wouldn't it be better to just be happy? But whenever I finally managed to crack a smile, someone would say, look how happy you are. Have you forgotten what happened back when you were little? Zhang Kuo gave me some time off, calling every day to share interesting stories. One day he asked what I wanted to eat, and I said I wanted to have hot pot at home. Without a word, he drove to my building and asked shyly, mind if I bum a meal off you? Then I'm not eating. I turned to leave. He asked dejectedly, do you hate me? I took a deep breath. You are my boss. A boss is just a boss. But I want to keep you company. His voice was hoarse. I don't want you to be alone. What is there to like about me? I stepped closer, aggressively pulling up my sleeve. It was covered in dense scars. I had even forgotten when I made most of them. Do you like this broken body of mine? His fingers trembled, and tears fell onto my arm without warning. Suddenly, my vision went dark as he pulled me tight into his embrace. Shaking all over, he buried his head in the hollow of my shoulder and choked out, I don't need an answer from you. I just want to pull you out of this. For so many years, no one had ever offered to pull me up. Under the dim street lamp, he wiped the tears from my face. You are the ray of light that broke into my gray life. It turned out that when I first joined the company, my casual see you tomorrow had been the turning point that made him give up on the idea of suicide. Can I hug you? I asked. He blinked, seemingly surprised that I would initiate it. Zhang Kuo's body temperature was high, like a furnace. I pressed against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. It was burning hot. I can manage on my own. I don't need anyone. In the end, I pushed him away. The weather turned colder, and we tacitly stopped talking about what happened that day. I remained a dutiful subordinate, minimizing our private interactions. But little sweets appeared on my desk every day with a sticky note full of trivialities. Looking at his little notes, my mood improved, and I started taking my medicine on time, finally stabilizing a lot. Life always hits you hard when things start to look up. Mom called to say Grandma wasn't going to make it, and told me to come back quickly to see her one last time. After asking Zhang Kuo for leave, I rushed home. Grandma lay on the mattress. The illness had tortured her until she was nothing but a skeleton. Her cloudy eyes looked out at the snowy sky through the window, and she reached out to me. Is that Sixi? I took her swollen hand and pressed it to my face. Grandma, it's me. Where is Li Shang? She asked persistently. I frantically called him, but no one answered. Amidst the endless busy tones, she closed her eyes with regret. On the day of the funeral, the snow was heavy. Li Shang stood in front of the grave wearing only a thin coat, completely out of place among the wailing relatives. On the way back, Mom suddenly tugged my sleeve. I looked up to see Zhang Kuo standing outside the gate, snow covering his black down jacket. Why are you here? I asked. He walked over and wrapped his arms around me, to keep you company. My hands, which had been pushing him away, suddenly lost their strength, and I cried my heart out in his arms. I woke up at dusk. Mom brought in water. You really are something, falling asleep while crying and still refusing to let go. Zhang Kuo stood at the door wearing one of my dad's sweaters. Want to go for a walk? The snow outside had stopped, leaving a vast expanse of white. I wrapped a scarf around his neck and we walked out, one after the other. Do you smell grilled sausages? He asked, half his face hidden in the scarf, his eyes shining. Want one? You sit here, I'll go buy it. After he ran off, a man suddenly appeared. I saw you from afar. I didn't dare recognize you just now. My blood froze in an instant. It was him. He smiled with a benevolent face. You've grown up so beautiful. He reached out to touch me. I was shaking violently, bile rising in my throat. Haven't seen you in years. How have you been? I got married and have 2 kids now. I shot up from the bench, dizzy and seeing stars. This was the man who ruined my life, and now he had a happy family while I suffered from insomnia every night and was covered in scars. Forget about the past, he lowered his head. Let's just say I was wrong. I don't accept that. What did you say? His voice turned cold. Wasn't it enough that I lost my job and went to jail back then? Not enough, I glared at him fiercely. As long as you're alive, it will never be enough. You have a daughter, right? What would she think if she knew her dad was a child molester? You dare? His face darkened. I sneered. Why wouldn't I? I might even find someone to play with your daughter. He jumped in anger. My daughter is just a child. Then what about me? Wasn't I a child back then? My voice was hoarse. When you put your hands inside my clothes, did you ever think I was a child? He felt justified that it wasn't a crime, even whitewashing his evil deeds as love for a child in court. I've already paid with a few years of my life. What more do you want? Do you want to extort money? I shook my head, reaching into my bag, trembling with excitement. Every second, I wish you were dead. I walked slowly toward him, my hand hidden in the bag shaking. Looking around and seeing no one, I thought I really could stab him to death. The knife raised with all my strength. Carried the pain of over a decade. He braced his hand to pin my arm and screamed like a slaughtered pig. The knife tip pressed against his mouth as I pinned him to the snowy ground. Have you committed any crimes again since you got out? He just shook his head. The knife sank into his mouth. I plan to turn myself in after killing you. Or you can confess right now. He started rambling, urging me to remember his good points. Then go to hell and tell that to the king of hell. Just as the sharp knife was about to pierce his throat, he mumbled, begging for mercy. I'll talk, there was one. It's my current wife. A sudden dark figure rushed in and knocked the knife from my hand, dragging me far away. Zhang Kuo held the knife across in front of him. Don't be afraid. Not far away, snacks were scattered all over the snow. The man on the ground didn't move. Zhang Kuo's voice trembled. Is he dead? He's not dead. Li Sheng appeared and checked his breath. Get lost. The man climbed up, spat viciously, and fled. Since when does Sixi have such strength? Li Sheng acted intimate in front of Zhang Kuo. Zhang Kuo stood stiff, the fear not yet dissipated. Let's go back. It's cold out here. He took off the scarf and carefully wrapped it around me again, the corners of his eyes red. If I hadn't brought you out, this wouldn't have happened. Can I hug you? I asked. He blinked, seemingly surprised that I would be the one to ask. Zhang Kuo was radiating heat, and I pressed against his chest, listening to the steady thud of his heart. I'm so sorry. I dissolved into tears. He lowered his head, his chin grazing the top of my hair. It's all right now, it's all in the past, after my grandmother's funeral. Zhang Kuo and I returned to the city. On the surface, life returned to normal, but behind closed doors, I listened to the recording on repeat, taking meticulous notes. This time, I was going to make sure he went back to prison. Li Sheng, on the other hand, kept asking to meet up. He claimed he couldn't explain it over the phone and insisted on seeing me in person. He was so spoiled. I blocked his tense number. To my surprise, he showed up right at my building, looking as nervous as a child. I just wanted to see you. Have you seen enough? I leaned in close. If you've seen enough, then leave. I stepped aside, waiting for him to go. Yusen. His voice choked up. I'm getting married. I'm not going. I certainly wasn't going to give him a wedding gift, it's not that. He shook his head vigorously. If you don't want me to, I can. Happy wedding to you both. Then, I said, waving him off. I'm broke. He gave a smile that looked worse than crying. Yu Yao Yao is pregnant, but because of what happened with your grandmother, my dad won't let her into the family. My dad listens to you. Please, help me. A light snow began to fall and his hands were frozen bright red. Why should I help you? Just do it for the sake of my grandmother. He turned his face away. This is my only way. I really have no other choice. I'll help you, but on one condition. I told Li Sheng I needed him to help me put that man behind bars. I didn't care if I wasn't the one to personally lock him up, as long as someone finally sent him back to prison. Li Sheng looked at me as if he wanted to say something. His lips moved, and then he collapsed toward me uncontrollably. I barely managed to catch his body as it went limp. The doctor said he had passed out from wandering around outside with a fever of 40 degrees. In his delirium, he gripped my hand with a death grip, and even the nurse couldn't pry him loose. Every time I moved, he would claw at me with both hands, causing the IV needle to slip several times. The back of his hand was a mess of bruises. I didn't dare move again. I just sat in the chair, staring at his cracked lips in a daze. This face, the one I used to dream about day and night, couldn't stir even the slightest ripple in my heart now. He stirred, tears sliding from the corners of his eyes. I'm sorry, don't go. He squeezed my hand tightly. Please, don't leave me. I reached out and patted his cheek. Li Sheng? Maybe I used too much force, because the slap seemed to wake him up, his dark eyes fixed right on me. It's you. I rolled my eyes. Relax. The hospital already called Yu Yao Yao. Then you. He struggled to prop himself up and scanned me with a look. That look really annoyed me. I yanked my hand back. Who told you to keep holding on to me? Transfer the medical fees to my account. I pulled the door open to leave, but a black blur rushed past, knocking me backwards so hard I hit the cabinet. I was dizzy from the impact, and a sharp pain shot through my lower back like a needle prick. I looked up to see Li Sheng squatting in front of me, looking anxious. Are you okay? Using his arm to pull myself up, I couldn't help snapping. Could I be okay after a hit like that? His hand was still bleeding, so he had to support me with the other one. Li Sheng, she's faking it. Yu Yao Yao, dressed in a black down jacket, stood with her hands on her hips, glaring at me. Apologize. Li Sheng's face darkened. She immediately lay down on the hospital bed. He turned to me and bowed his head again. Yusen, I apologize on her behalf. I'm sorry. I didn't respond, just pulling up my payment code. Your medical bills and my examination fee. He paused for a moment. Okay, I'll scan you. In the end, Li Sheng agreed to my conditions. With his extensive connections, investigating someone was a piece of cake for him. The evidence we collected was enough to put that man back in prison, and it seemed we had gained some unexpected leverage as well. Now, we just needed the victim to speak up. I scheduled a meeting for Sunday, subconsciously not wanting Zhang Kuo to know about it. Just as I was thinking about him, his call came in. The moment I picked up, I heard his voice sick with tears. He must have suffered quite a grievance. Can I come see you? It was still early evening. So I told him to come over for dinner. Just as I finished cooking, the doorbell rang right on time. I opened the door to find Zhang Kuo standing outside, snow settling on his shoulders, carrying 2 large bags of snacks. It's so cold, I quickly put him inside, brushing the snow off him. What happened? What's wrong? He let out a sob. He seemed like he wanted to hug me, but since he was covered in cold air, he settled for taking off his coat and rubbing his hands together to warm them. Among the snacks he brought was beer. He sat hugging a glass, looking down pitifully. My parents came to visit me. Sure enough, the moment they walked in, they started lecturing him about everything from his job to his marriage, making him feel completely worthless. Yusen, I really am trying my best. He looked up, his eyes watery. But why can't they just give me a little validation? I didn't know what to say, so I stepped forward and stroked his hair. He leaned his face against me obediently, his arm around my waist tightening. Seeing that he was about to wipe his tears all over me, I pushed his head away with one hand. Can we eat now? Zhang Kuo, eyes still watery, downed 2 bowls of rice, stubbornly insisting that my cooking was so good it moved him to tears. After dinner we curled up on the sofa to watch variety shows, drinking the beer he brought. The more time we spent together, the more I realized how talkative he was. He almost told me exactly which class he was in during 1st grade. I figured he was drunk. His cheeks were flushed, his long lashes lowered, staring at me without blinking. What are you smiling at? I asked. The corners of his mouth curled up. I'm not smiling. My ears were burning. He leaned in close to my ear. I didn't get this part. Can you explain it to me? I didn't dare look up, tucking a stray hair behind my ear. This part is about Detective He voting for the killer based on the clues. His fingertips reached out, casually brushing a lock of hair away from my face. It tickled, and I shivered. He moved in a fraction closer, his eyes fixed on the screen. So who do you think the killer is? I don't know. I tried to move away, but I was already squeezed into the corner of the sofa. He sighed and closed his eyes. You Yi-Qi-Chen. My heart skipped a beat, afraid he had noticed something. When he opened his eyes again, they were startlingly bright. Before I could say anything, he hurried into the bathroom. He didn't come out for a long while. When he did, it looked like he had washed his face, and when he leaned close, I could tell he'd used my face wash. His eyes were darting around nervously, and he sat perched on the very edge of the sofa, stammering as he tried to make conversation. Zhang Kuo, do you want to sleep with me? I looked him straight in the eye, asking calmly. He was so shocked his eyebrows shot up. He fell onto his bottom on the rug, frantically waving his hands. No, absolutely not. I nodded and held out a hand for him to help me up. Zhang Kuo held my hand, clasping it between both of his expression serious. I wasn't in my right mind, I should be punished. I like you, the way a man likes a woman. Or rather you Sen, I love you. What exactly do you like about me? Aside from what he had said before, I was still confused. He paused, his gaze growing deep and intense. Do you really want to know? What if I told you I've been plotting after you for a while? His hand slowly moved up my arm, pulling me closer. I could feel the sweat in his palm. Everything I did before was just to get close to you. Yusen, please don't be mad at me. Emboldened by the alcohol, he shook my arm, looking up at me pitifully. His eyes were beautiful, slightly upturned at the corners and glistening with moisture, looking at the world with such depth. He said the flutter in his heart that day had only lasted a moment, but he had remembered me, and unconsciously, he always found himself wanting to see what I was doing. Does watching me help you blow off steam? Is that the reason? He leaned in, nuzzling against me. It isn't about relief, it's admiration. You are brave, you aren't afraid to lose, and your resilience is admirable. But later I lost track of things. I just desperately wanted to be connected to you, no matter the reason. But back then, I was just your colleague. I forced a smile. So what now? I was just faking it all. His hand came to rest on the back of my head, stroking it gently. But that was still you. I've seen every side of you, and I love every side of you. He took me on that cruise trip on purpose, just to get me away from Li Shen. He claimed he couldn't get over his ex-girlfriend because he was afraid I'd push him away. Even showing up at my door that night, dressed so smartly, it was all part of his plan. He came to my hometown on purpose, using Mojing as an excuse. I really am an idiot, foolishly believing his lies. It turns out he figured me out a long time ago. When did you find out about what happened? I asked. He froze for a second, then answered cautiously. That afternoon we ran into Li Sheng on the cruise. He knew all along. I lowered my head, staring at my clenched fists, my fingernails digging into my palms. During that time, I was still pretending to be positive and normal in front of him. Was he secretly laughing at me the whole time? Zhang Kuo frantically pried my fingers open, tears streaming down his face. Please stop hurting yourself, okay? Well, do you think I'm disgusting too? I looked up, my eyes stinging, refusing to cry anymore. No, he straightened his back and protested. That wasn't your fault. You were completely innocent in what happened. His tears fell even harder. I know you've been suffering. I know you aren't actually happy. Yu Chen, he wiped his tears indiscriminately, choking back sobs as he begged. Can you please let me stay by your side and keep you company? It was late, and I didn't want him to stay. Zhang Kuo left, looking back every few steps. I'm not a decisive person. Reason told me I should reject him outright. I could have even told him I still liked Li Shen to make him stay away. Even though he was manipulative and lied to me, I still felt a pang of pity for him. I didn't want to drag him into my mess. That night, lying in bed, the past surged over me like a tide in the darkness. The bite mark on my arm throbbed faintly, and the metallic tang of blood filled my mouth. In a haze, I was back in that afternoon. The man's heavy breathing drew closer, chanting that he loved me over and over, while his hands violated my clothes. "Yusen, you have to be a good girl and listen to your teacher, okay?" I woke up with a start, my pillowcase soaked with tears. My phone rang. It was my mom. "Sweetie, do you have enough money out there?" "Yes, I'm eating and drinking well every day." My dad snatched the phone. "That's my girl, always so ambitious." My mom's voice rang with pride. "Well, look who her mother is." It's not that I haven't thought about ending it all. For years, the only thing keeping me going was them. People used to tell me, "You just have too much pride. You torture yourself every day. Why can't you just be happy?" But whenever I finally managed to smile, someone would say, "Look at you, so happy. I guess you've forgotten about what happened when you were a kid, right?" Zhang Kuo gave me some time off, calling me every day with funny stories. One day he asked what I wanted to eat, and I said I wanted to make hot pot at home. Without a word, he drove to my building and asked shyly, "Mind if I crash for dinner?" "Then I'm not eating." I turned to leave. He asked dejectedly, "Do you hate me?" I took a deep breath. "You are my boss. A boss is just a boss. But I want to keep you company." His voice was low and raspy. "I don't want you to be alone." "What exactly do you like about me?" I stepped closer to him, ferociously rolling up my sleeve. It was covered in dense scars. I couldn't even remember when I'd made half of them. "Do you like this broken body of mine?" His fingers trembled and tears fell onto my arm without warning. Suddenly, my vision went dark as he pulled me into a tight embrace. His whole body shook as he buried his head in the crook of my neck, choking back sobs. "I don't need an answer from you. I just want to help pull you out of this. For so many years, no one had ever offered to pull me up." Under the dim streetlights, he wiped the tears from my face. "You are the beam of light that broke through my gloomy life." It turned out that when I first started the job, a casual "see you tomorrow" from me had been the turning point that made him give up on thoughts of suicide. "Can I hug you?" I asked. He blinked, looking surprised that I would initiate it. Zhang Kuo's body was warm like a furnace. I pressed against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. It was racing. "I can handle this myself. I don't need anyone else." In the end, I pushed him away. The weather turned colder, and we silently agreed not to mention what happened that day. I remained a dutiful subordinate, keeping our private interactions to a minimum. But every day, small sweets appeared on my desk with a sticky note detailing trivial events. Reading his little notes improved my mood, and I started taking my medication on time. Finally, things began to stabilize. Life always hits you hardest when things start to look up. My mom called to say my grandmother was dying and told me to come back immediately to see her one last time. I asked Zhang Kuo for time off and flew home. My grandmother lay on a mat, the illness having tortured her until she was nothing but skin and bones. Her cloudy eyes gazed out at the snowy sky through the window as she reached out a hand. "Is that 60?" I took her swollen hand and pressed it against my cheek. "Grandma, it's me." "Where is Li Shen?" she asked persistently. I frantically called him, but no one answered. Amidst the endless busy tones, she closed her eyes with regret. On the day of the funeral, the snow was heavy. Li Shen stood before the grave wearing only a thin coat, looking completely out of place among the wailing relatives. On the way back, my mom suddenly tugged at my sleeve. I looked up to see Zhang Kuo standing outside the gate, his black down jacket covered in snowflakes. "Why are you here?" I asked. He walked over and wrapped his arms around me. "I'm here for you." My hands, which had been pushing him away, suddenly lost their strength, and I sobbed in his embrace. I woke up at dusk. My mom brought in some water. "You really are something, crying yourself to sleep and still refusing to let go of him." Zhang Kuo stood at the door wearing one of my dad's sweaters. "Want to go for a walk?" The snow outside had stopped, leaving everything a vast white. I wrapped a scarf around his neck, and we walked out, one after the other. "Do you smell grilled sausages?" he asked, half his face hidden behind the scarf, his eyes shining bright. "Do you want one? You sit here, I'll go buy some." After he ran off, a man suddenly appeared. "I saw you from a long way off. I almost didn't recognize you just now." My blood froze in my veins. It was him. He smiled with a benevolent look. "You've gotten so pretty." He reached out to touch me. I was shaking violently, bile rising in my throat. "Haven't seen you in years. How have you been?" "I got married and have 2 kids now." I shot to my feet, dizzy and lightheaded. This was the man who had ruined my life. He had a happy family now, while I suffered from insomnia every night, covered in scars. "Just forget about the past," he said, lowering his head. "Treat it as if I was wrong. I don't accept that." "What did you say?" His voice turned cold. "Wasn't losing my job and going to prison back then enough?" "Not enough." I glared at him, my eyes boring into his. "It will never be enough as long as you're alive. You have a daughter, right? How do you think she'd feel knowing her father is a child molester?" "You wouldn't dare." His face turned dark. I sneered. "Why wouldn't I? I might even find someone to play with your daughter too." He stomped his foot in fury. "My daughter is just a child. And what about me? Wasn't I a child back then?" My voice was raspy. "When you stuck your hand inside my clothes, did you ever stop to think I was just a child?" He felt completely justified, as if he hadn't committed a crime at all. He had even twisted his abuse into love for a child back in court. I've already paid with years of my life. What else do you want? Money? I shook my head, my hand slipping into my bag as my whole body trembled with a strange excitement. Not a moment goes by when I don't want you dead. I inched closer to him, my hand hidden inside the bag, shaking. Seeing no one around, I thought to myself, I really could kill him right now. The knife, raised with all my strength, held the weight of over a decade of pain. He blocked my arm with his hand, screaming like a dying pig. I pressed the knife tip against his lips and pinned him into the snow. Have you committed any crimes since you got out? He just shook his head. I drove the knife slightly into his mouth. I plan to turn myself in after I kill you, or you can confess right now. He started rambling, begging me to remember the good times. Go tell that to the king of hell then. Just as the knife was about to pierce his throat, he mumbled, I'll talk. There was one. It's my wife now. A sudden shadow rushed in and knocked the knife from my hand, dragging me back. Zhang Kuo stood protectively in front of me. Don't be afraid. Not far away, snacks were scattered all over the snow. The man on the ground wasn't moving. Zhang Kuo's voice shook. Is he dead? No. Li Sheng appeared, checking the man's breath. Get out of here. The man scrambled up, spat viciously on the ground, and ran for his life. Since when did you get so strong, Yusen? Li Sheng acted affectionate right in front of Zhang Kuo. Zhang Kuo stood there stiffly, the fear still lingering on his face. Let's go back. It's cold out here. He took off his scarf and wrapped it carefully around me, his eyes red at the corners. If you hadn't come out with me, this wouldn't have happened. Can I hug you? I asked. He blinked, looking surprised that I'd initiated it. Zhang Kuo's body temperature was high. I pressed my face against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. I'm sorry. I cried my eyes out. He lowered his head and rubbed his chin against the top of my head. It's all right. It's all over now. After my grandmother's funeral, Zhang Kuo and I returned to the city. On the surface, life returned to normal, but in secret, I listened to the recording over and over, taking detailed notes. This time, I was going to make sure he went back to prison. Li Sheng, on the other hand, kept asking to meet me time and again. He couldn't explain it over the phone, he just had to see me. He was so spoiled. I blocked his 10th number. To my surprise, he cornered me downstairs, looking as nervous as a child. I just wanted to see you. Have you seen enough? I leaned in close. If you've seen enough, then leave. I stepped aside, waiting for him to go. Yu Chen, he choked back a sob. I'm getting married. I'm not going. I certainly didn't want to give a wedding gift. No, that's not it. He shook his head vigorously. If you don't want to, I can. Happy wedding to you then, I said, waving him off. I don't have any money. He smiled, looking more miserable than if he had been crying. Yu Yaoyao is pregnant. Because of what happened with your grandmother, my dad refuses to let her into the family, but my dad listens to you. Please help me. A thin snow began to fall, and his hands were frozen red. Why should I help you? Just do it for the sake of my grandmother, he said, turning his face away. It's my only option. I really have no other way. I can help you, but I have a condition. I wanted Li Shen to help me send that man back to prison. I didn't care if I did it with my own hands, as long as someone put him behind bars. Li Shen looked at me, as if he wanted to say something. His lips moved, and then he leaned toward me uncontrollably. I only just managed to catch his body as it went limp. The doctor said he had fainted from wandering around outside with a fever of 40 degrees. In his delirium, he gripped my hand with a death grip, and the nurses couldn't get him to let go. Every time I moved, he would clutch at me with both hands, causing the IV needle to slip several times. The back of his hand was bruised purple. I didn't dare move anymore. I just sat in the chair, staring at his chapped lips in a daze. This face I used to think about day and night. It couldn't stir up even a single ripple in me now. He stirred, a tear sliding from the corner of his eye. I'm sorry, don't go. He squeezed my hand tight. Please, don't leave me. I reached out and patted his cheek. Li Sheng? Maybe I used too much force, because he woke up with a start, his dark eyes staring straight at me. It's you. I rolled my eyes. Relax, the hospital called you Yao Yao. Then he struggled to prop himself up and glanced at me. I really hated that look. I yanked my hand back hard. Who told you to hold on to me like that? Transfer the medical fees to my account. I pulled the door open to leave when a blur of black rushed past, pushing me backward so hard I slammed into the cabinet. I was dizzy from the impact, and a sharp pain stabbed at my lower back. I looked up to see Li Shen crouching there, looking panicked. Are you okay? Using his strength to stand up, I couldn't help but snap. Can I be okay after a hit like that? One of his hands was still dripping blood, so he had to support me with the other. Li Shen. She's scamming you. Yu Yao Yao, dressed in a black down jacket, stood with her hands on her hips, glaring at me. Apologize. Li Sheng's face darkened. She immediately lay down on the hospital bed. He turned around and bowed his head to me again. Yusen, I apologize on her behalf. I'm sorry. I didn't respond, pulling up my payment code. Your medical fees and my examination fees. He paused for a moment. Alright, I'll scan you. Li Sheng finally agreed to my conditions. He had a lot of connections, so finding information on someone was easy for him. The evidence he collected was enough to put that man back in prison, and it seemed that there was an unexpected bonus. Now, the only thing missing was for the victim to speak up. I arranged a meeting for Sunday, subconsciously not wanting Zhang Kuo to know. Just as I was thinking about him, his call came in. As soon as I picked up, I heard his voice choked with tears. He must have suffered quite a grievance. Can I come find you? It was getting dark, so I told him to come over for dinner. Just as I finished cooking, the doorbell rang right on time. I opened the door to find Zhang Kuo standing outside with snow on his shoulders, carrying 2 huge bags of snacks. It's so cold. I hurriedly pulled him in, brushing the snow off him. What happened? Who upset you? He sniffled, seeming like he wanted a hug, but since he was freezing cold, he just took off his coat and rubbed his hands together. There was beer among the snacks he brought. He sat hugging a glass, looking down pitifully. My parents came to visit me. Sure enough, as soon as they walked in, they started lecturing him, criticizing everything from his job to his marriage, making him feel worthless. Yusen, I'm really trying. He looked up, his eyes watery. But why can't they ever give me a little bit of recognition? I didn't know what to say, so I stepped forward and stroked his hair. He nuzzled against me obediently, his arm around my waist tightening. Seeing that he was about to wipe his tears all over me, I shoved his head away with one hand. Can we just eat? With tears still in his eyes, Zhang Kuo wolfed down 2 bowls of rice, stubbornly insisting that my cooking was so good it made him cry. After dinner, we curled up on the sofa watching variety shows, drinking the beer he brought. After spending so much time together, I realized he was actually quite chatty. He almost told me exactly which class he was in during 1st grade. I think he was drunk. His cheeks were flushed red. His long lashes lowered as he stared at me without blinking. What are you smiling at? I asked. The corners of his lips curved up. I'm not smiling. My ears were burning. He leaned in close to my ear. I didn't understand this part, can you explain it? I didn't dare to look up, fiddling with the hair by my temples. This part is about Detective He voting for the killer based on the clues. His fingertips touched my face, casually brushing away a stray lock of hair. It tickled so much that I trembled. He moved even closer, his eyes still on the screen. So, who do you think is the killer? I don't know. I wanted to move away, but I had already been squeezed into the corner of the sofa. He sighed and closed his eyes. Yusen, my heart jolted, afraid he had noticed something. When he opened his eyes again, they were startlingly bright. Before I could say anything, he hurried into the bathroom. He didn't come out for a long while. It looked like he had washed his face. I knew he had secretly used my face wash as soon as I got close enough to smell him. His eyes darted around nervously. He sat awkwardly on the very edge of the sofa, stuttering as he tried to make conversation. Zhang Kuo, do you want to sleep with me? I looked straight into his eyes, speaking calmly. He was so shocked his eyebrows shot high. He plopped his butt onto the carpet, waving his hands frantically in a panic. No, absolutely not. I nodded and reached out my hand for him to pull me up. Zhang Kuo held my hand, clasping it between both of his, looking serious. I lost my mind. I deserve to die. I like you, the way a man likes a woman. Or rather, Yuchen, I love you. What exactly is it that you like about me? Aside from what he had said before, I was confused. He paused, his gaze turning deep and intense. Do you really want to know? What if I told you I've been plotting to get you all along? His hand slowly crept up my arm, pulling me closer. I could feel the sweat in his palm. Everything I did before was just to get close to you. Yuchen, please don't be mad at me. Emboldened by the alcohol, he shook my arm, looking up at me pitifully. He had beautiful eyes, slightly upturned at the corners, glistening with moisture. He looked at everyone with such depths of feeling. He said that the flutter in his heart that day was just a fleeting moment, but he had remembered me. He couldn't help but always want to see what I was doing. Watching me is stress relief? Is that the reason? He rubbed his face against mine. Not stress relief, it's admiration. You are brave, you aren't afraid of losing. The resilience you have commands respect. Later on, I couldn't tell the difference anymore. I desperately wanted to have a connection to you for any reason, but back then I was just your colleague. I tried my best to force a smile, so what now? I was faking it all. His hand landed on the back of my head, stroking it gently. But that was still you. I have seen every side of you and I love every side of you. Going on the cruise was intentional to get me away from Li Sheng. Saying he couldn't forget his ex-girlfriend was because he was afraid I would resist him. Showing up at my door fully dressed that night was also part of the plan. Coming to my hometown was intentional. He had used Mo Jing. I really was stupid, naively believing his excuses. It turned out he had understood me thoroughly long ago. When did you find out about that matter? I asked. He froze for a second, answering cautiously. The afternoon I ran into Li Sheng on the cruise, so he had known all along. I lowered my head, staring at my tightly clenched fist, my fingernails digging into my flesh. During that time, I was still pretending to be positive and normal in front of him. Was he laughing at me behind my back? Zhang Kuo hurriedly pried my hand open, tears streaming down his face. Please don't hurt yourself, okay? What about it? Do you think I'm disgusting too? I raised my face, my eyes stinging, not wanting to cry anymore. No. He straightened his back and argued, that wasn't your fault. You were completely innocent in that matter. The tears fell even harder as he choked back a sob. I know you've been suffering deeply. I know you aren't actually happy. Yu-sen. He wiped his tears messily, pleading with a sob. Can you please allow me to stay by your side and keep you company? It was late, and I didn't want him to stay. Zhang Kuo walked away, looking back repeatedly at every step. I am not a decisive person. My reason told me to reject him clearly. I could even tell him I still liked Li Shen to make him stay away. Even though he was calculating and lied to me, I still felt a bit sorry for him. I didn't want to drag him into my messy affairs. On the day of the scheduled meeting, I specially chose a private room. Not long after I arrived, I saw a slightly plump woman leading 2 children inside. I reached up to adjust my earpiece, ensuring that Li Shen could hear on the other end. Are you sure you want the children present? I poured her a cup of tea. The woman nodded, then finally looked up at me. I know why you asked me here. I hadn't expected her to be younger than me, yet ravaged to this state. She told me she dropped out of high school to marry him because her family had caused a scene at his workplace. If I didn't marry him, my life would be over. Then do you know he is committing a crime? Her one sentence made my chest heave with anger. I know her smile was desolate, but I had no choice. I was already pregnant at the time, and I couldn't handle the gossip. She showed me a photo. The girl in the picture had clear, bright eyes. This is me. Her fingers stroked the photo, but I have turned out like this after getting married. I was the one who ate all the leftovers at home because they were afraid of wasting food. After giving birth, my hair fell out in clumps. I had to slap myself a few times every day just to stay awake. I felt terrible, so I told her how I was molested and how I exposed his evil deeds. I'm not as good as you. You have people who love you and I have nothing. She lowered her head. My dad actually wanted to kill me back then. I don't want to recall the past at all because I think things are fine the way they are now. As far as I know, he is still teaching. As long as he is there for a day, there will be people like you and me being violated. She suddenly pushed my hand away, her emotions intense. But my children are innocent, they can't have a criminal for a father. As she spoke, she actually knelt down before me, dragging the children to kowtow to me. Hurry, beg auntie to let dad go. The wailing in the private room was deafening. Stop crying, my feet felt like ice. I said stop crying. The 3 of them instantly fell silent. Even if I die, I will become a vengeful spirit and haunt him forever. She froze, her eyes glazed over. So, it wasn't my fault. For so many years, the abuse from her parents and the condescension from the neighbors had made her believe she was unpardonable. What is your name, Tingshan? I crouched down and hugged her. Tingshan, your life is still so long, don't let him destroy it. Do I still have a chance to be saved? Her question made my nose sting. You definitely do. I told her that half a year after the case ended, I would give her a sum of money to start over. Thank you for caring about me. A bit of color returned to her face, and she slowly managed a smile. She didn't give me an answer right away, only saying she would go back and think about it. On the day of the trial, Zhang Kuo appeared out of nowhere, claiming it was a coincidence. I was just worried you'd be scared alone, he said, looking down at me with a gentle gaze. I let out a soft sound and turned away, walking a few steps without hearing him follow. It's almost time, I said casually. Are you coming? His head, which had been drooping, shot up immediately. He hurried a few steps to catch up and grabbed my hand. Ready? I nodded hard. Because it happened so long ago, gathering evidence was difficult. He glanced back at me arrogantly, even humming a little tune. I lowered my head silently, rubbing my face fiercely, fury boiling in my heart. The experiences buried deep for 10 years were being laid bare again. I could feel the gaze of the person beside me in my peripheral vision. After more than a decade, perhaps my hatred would fade with time. Maybe I would slowly choose to let it go. But the scarlet blood trickling down my forehead told me that this was a hatred carved into my very bones. With me taking the lead, Tingshan gradually let her guard down and recounted the man's crimes. In response, the man said lightly, "You didn't refuse, did you?" There wasn't a trace of repentance on his face. Even now, he was resenting the victims for not refusing. I felt terrible, a dense stinging pain attacking my chest. How many others like me are suffering in silence in this world? They are confused and struggling in pain, while the executioners don't even realize their mistakes. The person beside me leaned over and wrapped his hand around mine. Just wait a little longer. The plaintiff's lawyer finally presented the records of the man's drug trafficking, pushing the case to a climax again. The man denied it outright, his speech incoherent, trying to drag others down with him. The case wasn't over, but I knew he was doomed. Yet I didn't feel the slightest bit of relief. It felt like a stone was stuck in my throat. I met Zhang Kuo's worried eyes. His palms were dry and warm like the winter sun. Zhang Kuo drove in silence, his gaze heavy. Despite the freezing weather, he was only wearing a shirt with a vest, and his hands on the steering wheel were red. Hungry? He turned his head, smiling brightly. Spicy hot pot? He nodded and turned the car around. I've been craving it. Is the place downstairs from your place okay? When we sat down after ordering, it was very quiet around us. He seemed to have something on his mind, looking listless, his eyes glancing at me from time to time. What do you want to say? I couldn't stand his gaze anymore. His drooping head shot up, and he tried to grab my hand again. I pulled my hand away and took out a tube of hand cream from my bag. Put some on. Zhang Kuo obediently unscrewed the cap and squeezed the huge glob onto his hand. He rubbed it, but there was still a white layer on the back of his hand. You put some on too. I saw his eyes following my hand movement. Subconsciously wanting to dodge before I could move, he caught it precisely. His two large hands cupped mine, spreading the cream up and down carefully. Otherwise it's a waste. What is our relationship that you can just hold my hand? His body stiffened for a moment, and he looked up at me. I looked seriously at his face. Can you hold a girl's hand before you're officially together? Zhang Kuo sat bolt upright, his Adam's apple bobbing up and down. I'm scared. Scared of what? He let out a breath, pinched my wrist with 2 fingers, and placed it on his chest. Feel this. Through the fabric, the heart under my palm was thumping violently. My palms went numb, and heat shot up my arm to my forehead. I still restrained myself and pulled my hand back, silently turning around to fix my hair, taking out my phone to carefully reapply my lipstick. Turning back to face him, I thought that since I had decided to move on, I shouldn't always let him be the one taking the steps towards me. Don't be afraid, I'll say it. My face was calm, but my heart was scared to death. Your slightest show of kindness made my heart burn. The love I had painstakingly built might shatter at the slightest touch, like a falling feather. A mist gathered in my eyes, and I gradually couldn't see Zhang Kuo's face clearly, yet I still couldn't hear his answer. My legs went weak, and my forehead was wet with sweat. I even thought about what I would do if he rejected me, how I could make myself leave with some dignity. A hand reached out to my face and brushed away the sweat-dampened hair. Zhang Kuo's emotions suddenly erupted. The chairs and table clattered as he leaned over with an overwhelming intensity. His arm pressed tightly against my back, and he nuzzled his head into the crook of my neck. How could I let you be the one to say that? Are you willing to be with me? His hot breath sprayed against my neck, burning it. I closed my eyes, smelling the reassuring scent on him, letting my tears flow freely, and gave him a firm answer. My mom sent me a few photos of Lai Shen's wedding. Although I really hated that Yu Yao Yao, I had to admit, the wedding was incredibly lavish. Ding dong, the doorbell rang. I rushed over and pulled the door open, throwing my arms around the person in a hug. I'm cold, hug me in a bit. Zhang Kuo walked in carrying things. He put down his things and asked, while taking off his coat, what do you want to eat today? Zhang Kuo had recently become obsessed with cooking, coming over every now and then to show off his skills. Why are you wearing so little? Aren't you cold? I frowned. He pushed his glasses. It makes me look younger, doesn't it? And it makes you look good when we go out. Have you taken your medicine these days? He asked as if it were just a casual question, but I saw his fingers tying the apron stop. I wondered why I had felt something was wrong all these years. It had escalated from throwing tantrums and smashing things at night to doing it during the day too. Zhang Kuo coaxed me into going to the hospital, and that was when I found out I was sick. Zhang Kuo still stayed with me, but I was afraid of scaring him when I had an episode. When I was pulling my hair, banging against the wall, screaming. Even the little nurses were scared, but he still stubbornly clung to me, refusing to leave no matter what. His arms were covered in bite marks from me. My heart ached for him. He hadn't done anything wrong, such a good person. How did he get dragged down by me? Don't cry. Zhang Kuo's hand covered my face, his voice still gentle. He lowered his head and kissed my hair. If you don't want to drink it, forget it. It's too bitter anyway. I didn't used to believe that there was really a Buddha who could protect people and ensure peace. The jade pendant on Zhang Kuo's neck was one I prayed for to keep him safe. At first, he didn't believe either, but later I watched with my own eyes as he put his palms together, his fingertips pressed against his forehead, praying that I would get better soon. Perhaps to avoid dragging him down, I should ruthlessly break up with him. But people like me, rotting in the mud, say, stay away from me with their mouths, but deep down, hope more than anyone that someone will pull them out. At that moment, a beam of light shines in, warming you up completely. Can you really bear to let it go? Honestly, I can't bear to let him go, so I want to try one more time, for him and for myself. That man was sentenced to death for multiple crimes, including drug trafficking, drug use, and sexual assault of a minor. It was much later when I received a phone call from AI Tingshan again. I heard she opened a restaurant, and business is booming. When are you coming over for dinner? I checked the calendar and realized we hadn't seen each other for over half a year. Before the new year, I'll definitely come before the new year. Go wash your hands and eat. Dinner's ready. Zhang Kuo was already down in the kitchen. Coming, Li Sheng. After my startup failed, I got married. To be honest, I didn't plan on settling down so soon. I didn't tell my dad to invite her, and he didn't ask why, he just kept sighing. Why invite an ex-girlfriend to my wedding? Was he trying to make things difficult for me? Sure enough, that heartless Yu Chen didn't even want to give a gift. My dad said that since we grew up together, I shouldn't have made things so ugly between us. Did I want it to end up like this? No, it was because Yu Chen didn't love me at all. She is the most heartless woman I have ever met. Her heart is colder than stone. Is Yu Yaoyao interesting? She is way better than Yu Chen. She controls everything I do, checking up on me constantly. The wedding went on as usual, but only Yu Chen's father came from her family. My dad actually asked about Yu Chen's recent situation. Her dad said she was dating a mature man who didn't mind her past and treated her quite well, saying he would come to meet the parents at the end of the year. Bullshit mature. By the time the toasting round started, I stopped listening. I thought I would live an ordinary life, but life is unpredictable. Yu Yaoyao and I became increasingly incompatible in our values. And we eventually divorced. She didn't want our son, took the money, and left gracefully. As time went on, my mom started trying to set me up on blind dates. Finally, with no other choice, I took my child to the matchmaking venue. I turned my head for a second, and the little guy had scurried off somewhere. I frantically searched against the crowd when I suddenly caught a glimpse of my son being scolded with his head lowered by a bench. The woman had her back to me, her curly hair cascading down her back. She was blocking my son's way, not letting him leave, insisting on waiting for a parent to pick him up. The sunlight wasn't particularly strong that day, so how did I see a radiance on her? Hesitating, I called out that long-lost name. She turned to look at me, surprised. I explained to her that he was my son, and so it ended up with both of us standing there. Heads lowered, being lectured by her. I hadn't seen her for such a long time. She seemed to have changed completely. She laughed at me for turning mute when I saw her, asking if I didn't used to hate her to death. Are you stunned by my beauty? I turned my face away, calling her annoying, but I was happy. In my spare time, I would click on her WeChat and scroll through it. It was mostly just shares about her life. I forced myself to be annoyed by her. I wanted us to reach the point where we were sick of the sight of each other. Why should I be the only one suffering? A water stain on the screen brought my thoughts back. I wiped it away randomly, closed WeChat, and opened the game interface. The water droplets on the screen kept falling with a plop plop sound. I miss her so much. Zhang Kuo, I had never met a girl like that. She didn't have much presence in the company, but I noticed her for some reason. When her proposal was rejected and sent back, I worried she might do something drastic. But I never expected her to sit alone at her desk, bawling her eyes out while still stuffing rice into her mouth. I don't quite remember what happened later. In my memory, there is only her brilliant smiling face saying "see you tomorrow" to me. She will never know that on that day, I had already prepared sleeping pills. But if it was "see you tomorrow," then I could still see the sun. This winter is too cold. It seems only the sun can make me feel a little warmer. During the team building event, she was clearly reluctant. But when she saw my face, she actually praised me while claiming she had great stamina and just loved team building. I also realized that I would smile at anything she did. She dozes off. I smile. She says hi to me. I smile for half the day. Later, I heard Li Sheng talk about what she went through in her childhood. All her cheerfulness and liveliness were forced. She had suffered more than any of us. I tried every possible way to get close to her. To keep her from getting suspicious, I had no choice but to use the excuse of having an ex-girlfriend. On the eve of the wedding, that kid Li Sheng forcibly dragged Yu Chen to sit in a restaurant and put on a show, pulling out a ring to propose. It was truly disgusting. Who did he think he was? This man had always been detached in relationships. He could neither be honest with his partner nor be loyal. He played around enough and then turned back to pretend to be deeply affectionate. Where did he get the nerve? But when I saw him holding flowers appear at my wedding, I couldn't help but pity him a little. When he gave the flowers to her, he actually shed tears, mumbling on, and even saying he wanted to forgive Yu Chen. I really wasn't in the mood to listen to his nonsense, so I turned around and pulled Yu Chen away to leave. Li Sheng said he was representing her family's side, but I told him that day would never come. Recently, I found her getting much closer to me. She's always hugging me and won't let go, resting her head on my shoulder and rubbing against me until my heart melts. But I don't dare touch her too much. It's okay though, this is fine. I still have plenty of time to wait for her.